Titan boys look to continue their hot streak. They've won their last 8 in a row. The St. Edmund Gales will be on the road, taking on Algona tonight on Sunny 99.7. The Gales boys have won their last 3 out of 4 and looking to knock off an Algona team that comes in with a record of 9-3. All 3 of those games available on our website, yourfortdodge.com. Fort Dodge Wrestling with a win in dominant fashion over rival Mason City last night, 77-3. 8 Dodgers with pinfall wins on tonight. That's your Alpha Media News Update from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom. I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Cloudy skies this afternoon with a high of 23. Winds out of the north around 5 miles per hour. Cloudy skies expected again tonight. Chance of snow. Lows dip down to about 15. High temperatures reach up to 26. Tomorrow, overcast skies. A dusting of snow tonight through Thursday night. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 22.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge, 236. Steve Peterson of the Farm Bureau is standing by. Obituaries this hour brought to us by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. Dean Scharf has passed away. Dean Scharf of Duncan died. His service was this morning at 10 o'clock. Henrietta Brown has died. Henrietta Brown's service will be at 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow at Gunderson's Chapel. Obituaries this hour brought to us by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. 2:37 at AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge, with the closing market report. Here's Dwayne Murley.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. March corn up 6 at 386.5. May up 5 1/4 cents at 392. July up a nickel at 397 1/4. September up 2 3/4 at 394.5. March soybeans down 2 1/4 at 895. May down 2 cents at 909. July down 2 1/4 at 922 1/4. August down 2 1/4 at 927. Soybean meal down 20 cents a ton at 297.60. February live cattle down a dime at 122.15. April down 60 cents at 120.70. January feeder cattle closed up 15 cents at 142.05. March up 22 at 135.40. February lean hogs up 27 cents at 66.22. April up 85 at 71.30. May up 67 cents at 77.65. And June up 47 cents at 83.97. From the Iowa Power Farming Show, I'm Dwayne Murley.
Equal opportunity is the cornerstone of the American dream. Being employed gives us the confidence to be financially independent. We feel useful and respected. But what if you were one of the 81% of adults with developmental differences who do not have a paid job? Join the SunTrust Foundation in supporting Autism Speaks, Best Buddies, and Special Olympics in creating pathways to 1 million employment and leadership opportunities for this talented community. Visit deliveringjobs.org to learn more.
Save the date for the 25th annual cake auction that benefits the Domestic Sexual Assault Outreach Center, Saturday, April 18th at the East Campus of Iowa Central. Come bid on tons of live and silent auction items that are paired with delicious cakes and cupcakes. With your help, DSOC can continue to provide safety, support, and hope to victims and survivors in our communities. If you would like to make a donation or volunteer, call 955-2273 or send us a message on Facebook. Don't miss DSOC's 25th annual cake auction this April.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Yeah, this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. I'm Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth. And you can always join this program by calling 515-955-1400. You really don't know how good you have it. Fort Dodge and surrounding areas, Southeast Iowa doesn't have a local talk station. Southwest Iowa doesn't, unless you want to talk about some of the local radio stations that play Rush like we do. But nobody has a local person on the air talking with local people. And that's what we're doing this hour, of course. This part of the program is brought to you by the Webster County Farm Bureau. People, progress, and pride, right, Steve?
That's it.
And our guest is a past president of the Webster County Farm Bureau and current member, of course, Steve Peterson from beautiful downtown Slifer, as usual. How are you, Steve?
Good. How are you, Mike? Sound better?
No, I am a little better. I am, and boy, it was a rough week or so there, and I'm not all the way over it, but I have good thoughts.
That's half the battle.
Danny Plouts of the Growth Alliance came in here the other day and said he had this doggone thing for 3 months.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to no 3 months with this nonsense, I'll tell you that. But it's cold, it's wet, it's winter. What do you say?
It happens.
And you've told me off mic that poor old North Dakota farmers up there.
Yeah, they just had the crop reports come out. And I thought maybe this would be the week, but they didn't quite do it. They're at 49% harvested. Now,
well, they're never going to get it done up there, are they?
They've got at some point you'd think they would, but 49%. They are even the crops that are coming out. Now they only made 1% progress in the last week because they were at 48. Right. So I thought they might get across that threshold. Maybe next week will be the week. But the corn, and this is on corn, the thing that's really, I mean, granted, harvesting in January is not ideal under any situation, but their test weights are really low, and a lot of 48 to 50 pound corn. So normally corn we sell at 56 pounds a bushel. A lot of corn in this area, we're in that 60 pound area. So ultimately we do sell weight, so that does matter. Mm-hmm. But low test weight corn brings some problems as far as storage and condition, and it can.
Low test weight means what?
Well, it's just the density of the kernels.
Right.
They don't add up. Some of the viewers might we reference a bushel. Well, a bushel is not like a quart of water per se. A bushel is what we consider 56 pounds, and that's how we reference it into our marketing and sales. So a technical bushel of 40, 48, 50 pound corn in theory would not fill a bushel basket up as full, or it would take less, or it'd take more of it than say 60 pound corn, because it's ultimately at 56 pound is where we determine the weight to sell. So it's a concern, and it's considered lower quality. So that's a whole new set of problems on that side of it. But yeah, I think they've got the harvest, that's never going to end up there. At some point, it's got to come off for them to start again next year.
Well, I was going to say that they're going to have to do something, take the loss, or is there? Do they have crop insurance in a situation like this?
Sure, and and there's and some of it may just be destroyed. Some of it, how the situation. I've never gotten into it that far to where I've never harvested it. So that's kind of uncharted waters for us around here.
I bet.
Occasionally you'll see a field of corn here that'll stand through the winter, or if you do go out in the countryside along state highways, there is a program that the state pays the farmer to keep.
Bound the soil or whatever.
Next to the roadways for basically an organic snow fence.
Right.
And they'll make arrangements, and there's a calculation on compensation, and you'll see some rows, next to state highways and whatnot for a living snow fence, I think is what it's called. But short of that, you don't see a large scale. I mean, definitely, if Iowa was still at 49%, it'd be terrible.
Yeah.
So.
I knew an old fella up in Kossuth County years ago. He'd get to drinking, and he'd just keep drinking until it was over with. And then by that time, it might be December, and a lot of his corn was under snow.
And I remember my grandpa.
And he'd get it out too somehow.
Yeah, they did. Their harvest was definitely extended in the older days when they picked corn, and they had a lot of more activities to do on the farm. Every farm seemed to have livestock, and it was just
chickens, the whole thing.
Different way of life then. But
it was a different way of life.
For North Dakota to be not quite at that 50% mark, though, that's pretty unreal. So
I'm always nostalgic for the way of life we just described. Farmers bring their stuff into town on Friday night. Friday was town night, and oh boy!
Unfortunately, another generation after this, I'm not sure how much of that's going to be remembered.
Oh, hardly. No, you and I are certainly me. I'm probably the last generation mentions that remembers that night. But it was a cool night because all the farm kids came to town.
Sure.
And they'd come and find us, and we'd all run up and down the street. It was a lot of fun. And stores were open and things,
Yeah.
It was great stuff.
Yeah, you walk uphill both way to 4 miles each way uphill to school, right?
No, I walked about 8 blocks, as I
Okay.
recall.
But yeah, there's a lot of different things. I was kind of looking through. Well, of course, I had coffee at the elevator this morning, and some of the guys there, they brought up an interesting. As I was looking through for some topics to talk about today, one of them said, of course, the impeachment's front and center, and they brought up different things of depending on where you get your news and what you listen to, the point of view of what it is, and that's
Always.
That's never been so true than right now, because like they said, you listen to one particular channel and they basically have a 180-degree different story than another. But one story that seems to be consistent, it was a big thing yesterday, was the coronavirus in China, and that really moved our markets in ways we didn't see coming, especially
Why
in
was that?
corn and beef. It just it got the market so uneasy worldwide, and it's
This disease mainly affects human beings.
it's human beings, but it's just got everyone nervous. Oil really dipped down yesterday to some lows, took almost 500 points out of the stock market.
The Chinese are being very aggressive. I mean, I understand they've even closed some of their ports.
It sounds
seaports.
It sounds like it. Some of the interior city where it started, they closed it off, and that's a city of 11 million people. So that's about not quite 1.5 times the size of New York City. After being in China last year, they have the capabilities to do it. Now, I don't think we would ever be able to close New York City down without a riot, but over there, I do believe they have the capability. They claim that there's 50 million people right now in quarantine in 17 different cities or towns. So they're supposedly being pretty aggressive on this. It sounds like the death toll is just over 100 people right now. In retrospect, I think SARS is what comes to mind, and that was about 20 years ago. I believe that was around 800 people died in that epidemic.
The Chinese, and you and I have talked about it before, have their own culture and their own beliefs. And I remember around the time of SARS or, I don't know, mad cow or something, the government of China, the communist government of China, gets real nervous when these outbreaks occur.
They do.
Because there are superstitions in China that date back hundreds of years. We have our superstitions, but their superstitions, if there's a virus or something, that's a message from the gods that the government is no good.
Well,
and that's the last thing the Communist Party wants to hear.
President Xi was quoted today saying, I'll quote this virus is the devil, and we cannot let the devil hide.
There you go.
And so they've elevated this to the urgency. There is some a lot of social media over there. They don't have Facebook. They have, I believe they called it WeChat, which is a government regulated. What you're doing and I are doing here today, talking publicly, that doesn't exist over there. There's not free thinking. So all of the information comes through the government, and the people will believe that. So what they're being told, kind of like with the African swine fever, when I was there a year ago in March, the farmers really didn't know anything about it. We probably knew more about it than they did. Well, I'm sure we did, but they weren't told. And I think that kind of played into maybe why they weren't being able to control it, because the people, they don't have like Iowa State Extension where we do to go get information and fact and try to help what's going on. They're just, the government leads them and they follow. So, but this epidemic that's going on, I guess if you want to call it, in China, it's being taken very seriously worldwide. It's having an effect. Now, luckily today, the markets maybe overreacted, and that's kind of because we were just starting to see some gains.
Yeah.
It looked like, maybe the light was at the end of the tunnel. We were going to start seeing, and we have started to see some small purchases by exports and our, grains and whatnot. And it kind of looked like we got over the hump, and we're going to, start adding to this market. Yesterday, we pretty much erased everything, both in the grain markets, stock markets, whatever. And today, we have corn had a nice little rebound, I think 5 or 6 cents. And it looks like the stock market's picked up about half of what we lost yesterday. So some of that, I think, is just the modern trading here, because a lot of it's computer generated now. It's the humans are out of a lot of it. And once these phenomena start, it's just a kind of a mechanical process which takes it down, which is unfortunate. But it looks like the world's got a close eye on this. A lot of testing going on here in the States. I think we're, 5 or 6 people confirmed now here in America. And where it goes for here, but hopefully the Chinese, and it sounds like, our administration has offered any assistance in medical, because I think the United States is definitely more advanced in a lot of medical procedures and diagnosis and working, to get a cure for this. So that's something that I know the markets are looking at, and we just need to get through this.
Yeah, we will.
So
we will. And boy, I hope this. I hope they find something with that coronavirus. I never got over that bird flu a couple of years ago that wiped out the chicken farmers, because it was just a mutant of a flu.
Yes.
I was told that existed decades ago here in the United States, and the flu virus mutated to harmless, and then kept mutating until it started affecting chickens. Avian flu, I believe, is what it was called.
Yeah.
And it killed chickens by the millions.
Yeah.
A lot of guys lost a lot of money.
Yeah, and I think there's a little misconception now. Coronavirus, I believe, this would be a good question for Representative Myers with her medical background.
Yeah.
I believe a coronavirus is actually more or less the common cold.
Yeah.
That is a type of coronavirus. So I think its actual name is 2019 nCoV that's what it's showing me, the actual name, but we're just grouping it into a coronavirus, which I think is actually common. But that entails, I think the SARS is actually a spinoff of a coronavirus. So
sure,
there is, I don't know that other than that abbreviated name, it's been given a pet name per se of what it is. But it's hopefully, with the quarantines and the things going in Asia, that this will be contained, it will be cured, and we can move on. So the markets are, like I said, they were very timid yesterday, and these markets had been pretty solid even through all the impeachment and all the other political noise that's been happening. The markets have been pretty much immune to that, and this virus really took the wind out of the sail yesterday.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see some rebound and get back to business on that. So.
Yeah, hopefully so. One of these days I'll have to come down to Gowrie. You should text me in the morning. I'll drive down to Gowrie and meet all your advisors down there in the coffee shop. But you mentioned that some of them wanted to talk impeachment. Why in the world would we only talk about impeachment now? Are they?
Oh, it just comes up.
It does all the time.
It does.
I am so sick of talking about impeachment or hearing about it. My head's going to explode. Now John Bolton. Who cares what John Bolton does? I mean, our farmers have had an uneasy relationship with Donald Trump, and we'll just, I'm just going to talk about this real briefly. Do most of the farmers still support Trump while looking at some of the Democratic candidates, or what is your opinion?
I would say most of the farmers I know. Now I will. The more official is because Donald Trump did talk at the American Farm Bureau last Sunday.
Was he the first
president?
Yeah, first president to speak at Farm Bureau. First one in a while, I'll bet.
Well, I know he's been the first one to do it 3 consecutive years.
Okay.
And I do believe he is the first that's actually spoke at the deal, and then to do it 3 consecutive years.
Mm-hmm.
The statistics I showed as a country, there was about 83 to 85% support of the farmers to the current administration. Which, like I said, a lot of the consensus I hear is he's getting things done. So
he is, as a matter of fact.
I know a lot of people don't like all the other noise.
His personality leaves something to be desired. I have problems with that myself, but when I look at what he's actually doing,
at the end of the day, I think another big thing. I was told it was supposedly to get rolled out at the our annual American Farm Bureau convention.
Yeah.
Was the repeal of the official repeal and replacement of the WOTUS, the Waters of the U.S. rule.
Has that happened?
It has been announced that he does have the replacement now for that.
Okay.
That
was an Obama-era regulation that was actually scary.
It was, for all practical purposes, it was an overreach beyond overreaches.
Oh God!
It would have basically, and this isn't even stretching the truth. A mud puddle on the end of your driveway would have been under federal jurisdiction.
Or water standing in your front yard here in Fort Dodge, for God's sake.
Would have been under federal jurisdiction. So it was a complete overreach. That has been repealed. Now, when you repeal, there are an old, and it might be a completely outdated. It's just like when we don't have a farm bill, and we miss the deadlines and it's not extended. Our farm bill repeals back to what's called permanent law, and that was written in 1934. So there's these permanent laws that are benchmarked that some laws will go back. And the Waters of the U.S., when it was repealed, then we were temporarily running on a very old version of jurisdictional law on that. So now they are putting forward their new proposal on this item. So I have not seen any of the text on it yet, but that's a big thing. I mean, we've been fighting about that in Farm Bureau for the, like I said, since the Obama administration on its overreach and trying to get it appealed, and it's lost in a lot of courts.
Sure.
It's been an uphill battle, but it's been a steady one that we've, as different groups, I believe Iowa was in one of the lawsuits, and we've been making headway, but it took this administration to finally take that out of play.
Yeah.
So now we're going to be involved in some language, rewriting the new one to go in. So that's a good thing. Tomorrow is the big day. The USMCA is going to be signed by the president.
Finally and at last, praise Jesus.
That really isn't getting a lot of, there's a lot of things that are very newsworthy to a farmer here in Iowa.
Well, the impeachment drowns everything out. It's like we're not doing anything else.
And there's just a lot of things that are in the news that, like I said, we've been talking about the USMCA deal since, seems like going on, all of a year and a half probably. And that's going to be signed. Then it's up to the Canadians, and it sounds like it's a favorable thing for them. And I believe President Trudeau up there has got a re-election coming up, and this is something I think he'd like to have done before that comes up. So that's kind of a big thing.
I do want to tell you that at Eggs and Issues, of course, Congressman King was there, and he was here by phone on Thursday. And one of the first questions asked, I believe, was from a farmer who asked Congressman King about his committee assignments and what good could he do farmers without committee assignments. I want to tell you that's Congressman King's hot button, because he took off for a while. He took off for a while, and he
That's a fair question.
It is a very fair question. It is, and I asked him Thursday, and I what can you do? We're a rural district. What can you do for us if you don't have any committees? And he didn't like the question, but he understood the question, and he answered, and he said, we're going to get this done, and Kevin McCarthy and you guys should stand up for me and all these things, and maybe we should. I don't know. We do need representation in Congress, I'll tell you that.
We do.
And if he's going to be the one, let's stand up and say, get him on an ag committee, for God's sake. Where else would a congressman in the 4th District belong?
I've met Representative King several times. Really nice guy.
Nice guy.
I've sat in his office in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I personally don't like a lot of the noise and the waves he makes. Some of them seem unnecessary to me. And I know there's a lot of people, whether you're in agriculture around here or not, they feel the same way.
You're right, 100%. It's 3 o'clock, me. We'll be back with Steve Peterson in a minute.
This is Dave Graveline. Be sure to listen to Into Tomorrow right here on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
This is a Fox News alert. Opening arguments are over. I'm Lisa Brady. The president's team, including lead lawyer Jay Sekulow, wrapping up their case by insisting he did nothing impeachable and that he was concerned with corruption in Ukraine and elsewhere and how U.S. aid would be used.
You're supposed to be the guardians of the trust here. It's the taxpayers' money we're spending.
Reaction from lead House impeachment manager Adam Schiff moments ago.
No one believes that. I'm confident there isn't anyone in that chamber or anyone in the country who will buy that explanation.
Still insisting the president only released the aid because he got caught. The trial is done for today. The next steps are questions from senators and a decision on calling witnesses. Meantime, a long-awaited Mideast peace plan unveiled today at the White House, where Fox's John Decker is live.
The president, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by his side, touted the 80-page plan that would more than double the territory under Palestinian control, but also recognize Israeli sovereignty over major settlement blocks in the West Bank.
Precise technical solutions to make Israelis, Palestinians, and the region safer and much more prosperous. My vision presents a win-win opportunity for both sides.
Moments after the proposal was unveiled, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said after what he called the nonsense that we heard today, we say 1,000 no's to the deal of the century. Lisa?
Meantime, John, Egypt is urging Israelis and Palestinians to carefully study the peace plan. A tsunami threat for Jamaica, Cuba, and Grand Cayman after a strong earthquake, magnitude 7.7 in the Caribbean Sea. No reports of damage or injuries. Several buildings in South Florida evacuated as a precaution. Wall Street rallies. The Dow up 186 at the closing bell. It had been over 200 during the session. America is listening to Fox News.
This is Stacy on her motorcycle.
What an incredible view!
And this is Stacy off her motorcycle.
Does this have sucralose in it?
On her motorcycle.
Oh, the wind in my hair!
Off her motorcycle.
It's pronounced et cetera, not etc.
On.
Woohoo! Yes!
Off.
No.
You're better on your bike. And with basic policy starting at $75 a year, quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Annual premium for basic liability policy not available in all states.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. But not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
One part of the work at a helicopter crash site in Southern California is finished.
The LA County Medical Examiner says they've recovered the bodies of all 9 people killed in the helicopter crash in Calabasas. 3 people were recovered Sunday and the other 6 were found Monday. Now work is underway to identify each person, though we know from other reports the 9 killed include Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, along with John Altobelli, the coach of the Orange Coast College baseball team, his wife and daughter, Christina Mauser, girls basketball coach at Kobe's daughter's school and also at his Mamba Sports Academy. Sarah Chester and her 13-year-old daughter Peyton were also killed. They were all on their way to the Mamba Sports Academy for a game in Thousand Oaks, California. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Today's scheduled game between the LA Lakers and the Clippers has been postponed. The crash investigation continues, including a focus on whether foggy conditions played a role. The pilot had been granted special clearance to fly on Sunday morning. The estranged husband accused of killing a Connecticut mother of 5 is in critical condition. Fotis Doulos was found in his car with the engine running at his Farmington home earlier today.
They could see through a window that Mr. Doulos was sitting in his vehicle and he had obvious signs of medical distress. Officers forced entry and immediately began to perform life-saving measures.
That's Farmington Police Lieutenant Tim McKenzie speaking a short time ago. Doulos had been released on bond, but an emergency bond hearing had been set for today, and there was a chance that he might be ordered back to prison. He had pleaded not guilty to murdering his estranged wife. Recapping Wall Street, a partial rebound from yesterday's sell-off. The Dow up 187 at the bell, the S&P and the NASDAQ gaining more than 1%. I'm Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones. A Fort Dodge man has been sentenced to prison for half a century on sexual abuse charges against a child. Joseph D. Peterson has been sentenced to 50 years following his conviction back in December on second-degree sexual abuse for charges against a child under 12. Peterson was found guilty during a jury trial in December. Originally, Peterson faced 2 counts. An additional 6 were added during trial. However, Judge Angela Doyle threw out the additional 6 and sentenced Peterson to the original 2. Peterson received 2 25-year consecutive sentences. He must serve 3/4 of each sentence before he has the eligibility for parole. Also, after his release from prison, Peterson would have to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. The first Eggs and Issues event of the year took place this past weekend here in Fort Dodge with several legislators from around the area. Those in attendance were able to ask questions to those legislators. Representative Mike Sexton of Rockwell City responded to issues that were brought up regarding hog confinements.
It's people that think that we aren't doing enough to regulate hog confinements, when in fact Iowa is one of the, as far as livestock, is one of the most heavily regulated states in the Midwest. So I'm not sure what they wanted me to say.
Senator Tim Kreinbrink said that mental health care was a hot topic during the event.
A lot of mental health questions, and I feel that we will be making big strides, especially with the things like that have happened to the Fort Dodge community. I think there's a real awareness and a need for continued mental health support.
Representative Ann Meyer talked about the proposal for an access center here in Fort Dodge, and she explained what that access center would provide.
This is a place where law enforcement, possibly family members, will drop off a person in crisis, and it's a 24-hour diffusing of the situation. If they need substance abuse treatment, they'll be able to have that. If they need crisis intervention as far as medication therapy, they'll be able to treat that, but then they may require hospitalization or the problem may be diffused. So that's what that access center or access point is.
Representative Meyer says she's working diligently on getting the access center.
Regardless of what's going on at these different levels, we need the access center in Fort Dodge, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that that happens.
Eggs and Issues was held on campus at Iowa Central. High school basketball from last night and games you heard on 92 Rock. The Fort Dodge girls fell 59-47 to Mason City. The Dodgers trailed by just 2 after the first quarter, but Mason City would outscore Fort Dodge 26-8 in the second quarter to build a double-digit lead. 3 Mason City players at double figures, led by a game high from Anna Dietz of 17. The Dodgers with 4 players in double figures, Tori Bennett and Aaliyah Palmer with 12. Cheyenne Miller-Hamid and Jalen Adams both added 10. In the boys' game, the Dodgers would fall 72-64. Dodgers started slow and trailed by 12 after the first quarter. They would rally in the second half, cutting the lead down to 5 in the fourth quarter, but couldn't get any closer. 4 Mason City players in double figures, led by Carson Thomas and Jeff Scogan with 16. For the Dodgers, senior guard Ty Kershaw had a game-high 24, and junior Dason Clayton added 16. The Dodger boys back in action tonight, a boys-only game hosting Johnston for a 7:45 tip-off. You can hear the game on your home for Dodger Sports, 92 Rock. Over on 105.9 The Beach, the South Central Calhoun Titans back in action tonight. They'll be on the road taking on West Bend Mallard. A 5:45 scheduled start time for the girls' pregame show with the boys to follow. And the Titan boys look to continue their hot streak. They've won their last 8 in a row. The St. Edmund Gales will be on the road taking on Algona tonight on Sunny 99.7. The Gales boys have won their last 3 out of 4 and looking to knock off an Algona team that comes in with a record of 9-3. All 3 of those games available on our website, yourfortdodge.com. Fort Dodge Wrestling with a win in dominant fashion over rival Mason City last night, 77-3. 8 Dodgers with pinfall wins on tonight. That's your Alpha Media News Update from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom. I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD Weatherology forecast.
Cloudy skies this afternoon with a high of 23. Winds out of the north around 5 miles per hour. Cloudy skies expected again tonight. Chance of snow. Lows dip down to about 15. High temperatures reach up to 26. Tomorrow, overcast skies. A dusting of snow tonight through Thursday night. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 22.
At Capital One, you can open a new savings account in about 5 minutes and earn 5 times the national average. Banking with Capital One means 5 times the savings to help pay for your perfect honeymoon. Or 5 times the savings toward your family's perfect vacation.
Big fan of water rides.
It's time to help make your savings goals come true. This is Banking Reimagined. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Rate comparison based on FDIC national rate. Capital One NA, member FDIC.
What's in store this week at your local Staples?
Tax facts. Tax time is here, and that's no time for guessing. So Staples has everything you need for tax season.
Like tax forms, organizational supplies, and TurboTax software.
And right now, you can save up to $20 on TurboTax software at Staples.
With TurboTax, there's no mystery, no guessing. So you report nothing but the tax facts.
Save up to $20 on TurboTax right now at Staples.
Where there's a whole lot in store.
While supplies last, ends 2/1/20.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/search. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/search. That's ZipRecruiter.com/search. ZipRecruiter.com/search.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
We may shoot this afternoon yet, I don't know. This is by Salt and Peppa. Anybody remember Salt and Peppa? No. Of course you do if you're a certain age. You might even remember them, Steve Peterson. I don't know.
I do.
Steve Peterson is with us. He's with the Webster County Farm Bureau. And, of course, this segment of the program brought to you by the Webster County Farm Bureau. Progress. God, I had it last time.
People and pride.
People and pride. Progress, people and pride. Yeah, that's a great logo. That's a great. It's a great slogan. It is.
Yeah.
People, progress, and pride. It just flows, and gives you the message. Anyway, we have been talking, not surprisingly, about agriculture in our area and in the world. Of course, I do want to ask about There's all kind, and there has been for how long? There's been suggestions and little gossip tips every now and then that we're going to get this trade deal done with China to everybody's satisfaction. Do you know about that, or what have you heard?
Well, the Phase 1 section was signed. And
Phase 1 would allow what?
Phase 1 was basically, it looked like a kind of a dressed-up verbal commitment that China's going to buy in the neighborhood of $40 billion in agricultural goods over a certain time period. But it didn't really define it gave a parameter of the items. And, it's just a general good faith gesture of how we are and how this is going to be handled. Now, the tariffs are not removed. And then hopefully they're going to go right into Phase 2. There's still a lot of speculation. Can the Chinese get to these amounts? I believe in 2013, they roughly were doing about 26 billion, and they've made verbal commitments to be in the $40 billion range. So that's a big uptake in purchases. So until we start seeing some of those commitments and solidify that deal, by contrast, if they're going to get to that number, they're going to have to get on the bandwagon and start buying some stuff. That's some of the speculation of what's going on. So But again, this particular disease outbreak that's going on in China is pretty concerning too, because they could definitely, if they isolate themselves off, is it possible for them to buy the $40 billion? But there is hope that we're going to roll right into this phase 2, which ultimately I believe will be the definitive agreement, and that would remove tariffs and but there is an agreement not to put any more additional tariffs on. But in the same breath, there was some talk when the administration was in Davos last week of doing some trade deals with the European Union. In the European Union, kind of a sticking point for agricultural goods over there is they have some non-science-based criteria on a lot of stuff, which basically they don't accept anything GMO.
Okay.
And that's been a sticking point getting into the European market. I believe there's going to have to be some relaxation of that. And, because the whole conversation of GMOs is actually...
Here, let me interject something here, Steve. The leading authority and the leading advocate for pushing back against GMOs is a man by the name of Jeffrey Smith. He has no science background whatsoever. As a matter of fact, he is a former ballroom dance instructor, and for a time he was over in Fairfield, Iowa, teaching flying carpet rides. This is the leading authority on GMOs in our country today, Jeffrey Smith. Okay. Published author, sold many books, and I don't know what a yogic flying instructor would know about GMOs, and I would question whatever else he had to say, as a matter of fact.
A week ago, down at Iowa State University, they had a speaker, and it was a Nobel Prize winner. His name was Sir Richard Roberts, and he was a big proponent and basically calling out a lot of world people for not embracing GMOs and the technology, because there's a lot of and what makes it such a weird conversation and is look at all the press and embracement that fake meat is getting right now.
God.
And and for all the craziness that's going on there, and you start seeing comparisons. There's for whatever reasons, and there are people that can't eat meat, and I understand that, and there's alternatives, but for the most part, people want to know what they're consuming.
Of course.
But this Mr. Roberts, the Nobel Prize winner, he used as an example. Back in the 90s, there was a version of rice that was made, and it was called golden rice. And golden rice, for lack of better terms, is they took beta-carotene, which that's what makes carrots orange, and they were able to beta-carotene exists in rice, but it's only in the stem and in the leaves. But they were able to place beta-carotene inside the germ of the rice, which is consumed. And in in a lot of countries where you're at nutritional deficits and whatnot, the body then converts that beta carotene into vitamin A. So this was a good thing, especially for the impoverished areas of the world. And it's not like some people want to think you're taking DNA from a fish and putting it in a plant, and that plant's going to swim. It's not Frankenfood. It's placement, and it's actually a lot. In some ways, it's safer and more economical than doing the old style plant breeding, and because it's so much faster and more efficient. So, the GMO stuff is that mindset, and I think there's some culture change. And as that presents itself, so that could really open up some markets in the European Union, because they just initially took the stance that they don't understand GMOs. GMOs are scary. We don't want them. And they've been on that premise for the last 20, 30 years. So I think there is enough science and enough fact-based stuff out there. But here in this country, and I go to the grocery stores and look at certain products, and this is what is a shame. There are products in grocery stores, right here in Fort Dodge, Iowa, that will have misleading information on labels.
Sure.
And unfortunately, I believe a lot of that misinformation is used as a marketing tool to make you feel better about a certain purchase or whatever.
Certainly.
And that's a shame that they can do that and value a product when it's really not true. So, I think a lot of people, they want to know where their food comes from. They want to know it's safe, and they want to, get the best bang for their buck.
Right.
And I don't think that's too much to ask. But it's a very interesting time right now when it seems that the imitation burgers and this.
It's all a bunch of nonsense. Our own Norman Borlaug, who has relatives in our town, was in part responsible for GMOs.
Sure.
And through his work, he saved millions and millions of people from being starved to death. Now, because of a bunch of strange, skinny people coming out of California or God knows where, we have to be real concerned about GMO.
Yeah.
What have you done in your life that compares to anything Norman Borlaug did or the scientists around him? It's a disgrace.
So it's
It's
kind of got off subject, but hopefully that's gonna be kind of a turning point for us getting into the European Union markets,
right?
And with those people. So and then another coming up next month is looking at another $5 to $6 billion, and put into context, China was a $25 billion customer, and now they're going to go to 40. The administration right now is working on a deal with India, and we virtually do nothing with India, and looking to come in a $5 or $6 billion deal with India right now. The president's going to New Delhi next month, and that's going to be kind of a milestone there. So, still, like you said, we started off with this China deal. We've got a lot of these other small deals cooking, and if I've learned anything over the last 2 years of watching this China deal is, I think we need to diversify and try to do a lot of business with a lot of different people so that we don't get completely upside down if we lose a trading partner. But
sure,
it sure seems that the current group of people initiating these conversations is doing a pretty amazing job to at least have these conversations that we haven't had for a long time. So, that's positive news. Locally, I've seen a report from our Prestige plant in Eagle Grove that their anniversary is going to be coming up here about the 1st of March, and they are anticipating being at 100% capacity, which is a pretty good thing.
That's a good thing.
Not knowing what and how this was going to go. They 100% capacity then will be, I believe, about 10,000 pigs a day. So that's a lot of hogs. Right now, I think they're about 80%, and they will be buying about 10 to 15% of those pigs on the open market, or just from growers from any group.
That brings us back to the China situation. The Chinese used to import a lot of our pork.
Yes.
Are they still, or where are they at on that?
I believe there's works of it doing. And then I just did see, which is kind of going against, they did a JBS in South America. I know they just did a large purchase from them down there, but for the most part, well, they've wiped out, and it's still, the Chinese. That's the unfortunate thing. Hopefully, this disease, they're being somewhat upfront of how bad this disease is over in China. Sometimes the numbers coming out of China can't be trusted either. So. But the amount of pork that they wasted in this African swine epidemic, they're going to need protein, and poultry and pork are at the front for their diets over there right now. Beef, I think we'll see some beef go in there, but their main diet right now is poultry and pork.
Yeah, it is.
And that's going to be the easiest. So
I don't talk to enough of beef guys to know what their international market is, where they're. I tried to get somebody from the Cattlemen's Association on regularly, but never was able to do it.
Yeah, it's it's
looking at you, Dean Black.
Well, I know there's been some restrictions on age of beef, and I'm not an expert in beef, but I do hear enough about it. I learned there's been some countries that have lifted some age restrictions. I think a lot of countries got kind of very regulated with the mad cow disease that went around. So they put a lot of kind of undue regulations for safety purposes, but the trick is and it's like with anything, whether it's corn, beans, beef, pork, these markets are hard to gain back, and they don't just come back overnight. So these relationships take time, and it's an enduring thing. So
that's exactly what Craig Hill said down at the Iowa State Fair, not last year but the year before. You had me down there and were finding me guests to talk to. It was a great afternoon of interviews, but that was one of the first things that Craig Hill said. He said these deals are intricate. They take many years to build, and once you break them, it's a disaster.
It's building a relationship all back over again.
All over. It may take as much time or more, and who wants that?
And constantly, the world's changing, things are changing,
sure
science is changing, and the cultures are changing. But another quick subject is we did have our annual Farm Bureau meeting last week, and as usual, our Iowa delegation, we got a couple of our policies at the national level. We got a policy to better identify rural underserved broadband areas. That was adapted nationally. And then a policy to make the definition of wetlands a little clearer and more stable, so that we're not, and I think a lot of that's going to get probably addressed in a new replacement for the Waters of the U.S. ruling from the administration. So those were some of the items that the Iowa delegation got adapted by the American Farm Bureau. So it's always it's an uphill climb when you got 50 states there and trying to adapt and create policy. But those were policies brought up from the ground floor here in Iowa, clear to the national policy. So and another kind of tidbit that I'd say is probably one of the bigger things for agricultural news that I've seen nowhere really on the news today, and that was there was a lawsuit that was filed a while back by the Renewable Fuels Association, the National Corn Growers, the Coalition for Ethanol, Farmers Union, and they won a lawsuit against the EPA, I believe it was yesterday, in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, which would be in Denver, and they took the EPA to court over the RIN waivers.
Yeah, this is a biggie. Yeah.
And they used 3 specific refineries in this lawsuit, and they won. Using the parameters of that court case, they are now saying that of the 35 small refinery exemptions granted last year, only 7 of them would meet mustard according to the precedent set by this court, which this could be a huge turn of events in these RINs. And unfortunately, this sometimes is the path that has to be taken. It's a lot slower path, but it kind of goes against some of the administration and their directions and the oil companies.
Sure.
And, we're taking a legislative fix or a judicial fix over the legislative fix. But so this has been going on for a while. I'm sure there'll be some appeals and whatnot, but this is a step in the right direction, I see, for the future of the RINs and the waivers and how they're discharged and some of the criteria met. So I'd say that it's very encouraging to see that. So hopefully we'll see some of that more in the news, but it's kind of an unreported kind of thing that I picked up on here just today. So it's definitely here in the Midwest, it's something that's near and dear to us, but we don't seem, even President Trump when he comes in, if we get through this latest exercise they're doing in Washington, when he comes, or if he comes to the Midwest to campaign, he's surely to have his feet held to the fire on some of this. I just don't see it.
I don't think we're holding our, here I'm going to inject politics, and you hate that, but I really want to see the Democratic presidential candidates ask more about our farm economy. It seems we're talking climate change and all these things that the National Party wants to talk about. But I sat down with Senator Harris when she was still running, Kamala Harris, who's a very bright woman, and boy, is she pretty. But I started asking her before we went on the air, about RINs and a couple of other things, and she kind of looked at me like, deer in the headlights. And I talked with Dr. Biden, Jill Biden, last week. Of course, she's not really a policy person. I guess the point I'm trying to make is the people on the national stage of the Democratic Party, they don't seem to know much about the ag economy.
They seem to have more social issue talking points.
That's exactly right. And this group and that group and all of those sort of things. But Trump talks about the economy a lot of times when he's not making a fool of himself. And a lot of people like me and you, our ears perk up because nothing works without a good economy. Nothing. You can talk all the social issues you want. Without a good economy, without people working, without money coming in, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. And, so right now, the regulations have been very favorable, and the getting the waters of the U.S., getting that off the books and getting something that's workable, that's a big thing for farmers. The trade deal, that's something we didn't need. We didn't sign up for that, I think, when people voted for Trump, because I know he said he was going to take on China. I don't think we really thought he was going to do that. And then to take on Mexico and Canada at the same time, that seemed a little overwhelming. It seems like we've survived it, and but now we can, move on. Let's make some more trade deals. That's what
I'm ready to go. Exactly. That's what counts to us here in this part of the world.
Yeah.
And I don't think they grow a lot of food in New York City. I know they have their agricultural part of the state in Upper New York.
California is, one of the most liberal parts of the country. They are the largest agricultural state.
Oh, yeah. We've talked about that before.
California, I believe, would be the fourth largest economy in the world on their own.
Yeah, California is an amazing place. Have you ever driven through that Central Valley?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I've driven through it several times. And you just drive through onion fields and tomato fields that go on and on and on. And they have, of course, they don't have the rain that we do.
Irrigation.
And they have irrigators there.
And you talk to farmers out there, and they have regulation upon regulation upon regulation.
Oh, yeah.
That we can't even dream about here.
Yeah, thank God.
And, and it's also a very, very, very labor-intensive state, and that's, the immigration and comes front and center.
But they've been doing it out there since the Second World War, the labor issue. Here, we need labor. Men are gone in the war. So we're going to advertise in Mexico. If you'd like to come up here in the short period, we'll pay you this amount of money, and then you have to go back. And most people do. Mm-hmm. Most of the, I shouldn't say illegal, they are legal immigrants to our country. They come up in the Central Valley, and they work hard, and they take their money back home. Yeah. Why is that so hard to do here?
Yeah. And, in immigration, it's, that's what's interesting to me, and I guess I don't, I'm not the one to ask, but we're going to be a 1-year anniversary in the Prestige. Is the immigration really here what we thought it would be?
No, absolutely not. And I'm proud of Prestige for standing by the rule of law. I am all for immigration. Let us control it. Let us make sure we don't have any people like that man accused of killing that poor girl down in Brooklyn, Iowa. Do the best we can. Let's not hide it. Let's not try to deceive anybody about it. Let's be open and upfront about it. We need some labor. Now let's figure it out. Aren't we smart enough to figure it out, Steve? Because I think we are.
I would hope so. But a year into this, I don't know. I guess I was thinking it would be a little more than what it is, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're up to 100% capacity, but they're not 100% hired either.
I don't know, but I'm and I have people because I speak in favor of immigration laws and border security. Think I'm some sort of redneck. I'm not. For God's sake, some of my oldest and earliest friends are Mexican people.
I was surprised in a poll to see that immigrants supported the current administration very highly because they don't like the illegal immigration either.
That's right. Yeah, and most of these people who are supporting Trump are entrepreneurs.
Sure.
I mean, they start little stores, little restaurants. I mean, we have a lot of great Mexican restaurants, and that's wonderful. But just to create more poverty is not a good idea, or to flout the law. And so I really appreciate companies like Prestige, again, for standing up for our laws. And standing for our laws is not racist, for God's sake.
It shouldn't be a bad thing.
Should not be a bad thing is right. Let's go to work here. Let's not talk about how lazy white people are and all these other things. Let's just figure it out.
But to get it back on point, now next week we can officially say the USMCA deal is signed.
rocking. That'll be cool. All right. Any events coming up that we should know about that the Farm Bureau is putting on? Or didn't I see something the Farm Bureau? Oh, stroke testing at the Starlight. Isn't that the Farm Bureau?
Yep, and I have done that. That's a good deal. I do it once every couple of years.
Mhm.
My doctor highly recommended it because he said that test would cost well over $1,000 if he prescribed it, and I want to say it's around $125.
Yeah.
It's out of pocket, but a lot of good information there and peace of mind too. So
Well, I'm all for that. I haven't done it yet. It's one part of my body that hasn't been examined, my brain, because they took an X-ray once and said there was no activity noted.
Or nothing they could do.
There was nothing they could do. But it's a good idea for everybody to get that. And that's do you know when that is right offhand again?
I don't have the date.
I got the flyer this
Yep.
morning in the paper.
Yep, the flyer's out, and you make an appointment, and it's painless. It's qualified people out there running the machines.
Sure.
And I think you can do you can kind of a couple choices of tests. I think I did them all. Bone density. And they're all painless, and and you get the results right there when you're there. So you even get to watch the monitor and see your heart and its passages, and it was pretty neat, impressive.
I had one of those colon exams one time, and they put a little TV screen right in front of my face so I could follow the procedure. I didn't need to see all that, frankly.
Yeah.
Last time I had one, they just knocked me out, and I don't even remember it, which is the best way to go.
It'll be on Netflix someday.
I don't know if anybody wants to see that either. All right, Steve Peterson's been our guest in this portion of the program, brought to you by the Webster County Farm Bureau. Steve, thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
Great news. Greg Hoare, the pork producers, is going to be here tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Greg doesn't usually, or he's kind of fallen out of the habit of coming here. But Greg will have some great information on international trade as it applies to pork, certainly. And we look forward to that. So this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. The news is next.
We see and hear about violent crimes almost on a daily basis, whether it's on the local news or happening right here in our communities. Unfortunately, violence is everywhere, and most people think it will never happen to them. The Homicide Other Violent Crimes program is here to help those affected by these crimes. All services are free and confidential. For more information on how you or someone you love could benefit from services, please call 515-955-5677 or visit us on the web at dsoc.com.
From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones. A Fort Dodge man has been sentenced to prison for half a century on sexual abuse charges against a child. Joseph D. Peterson has been sentenced to 50 years following his conviction back in December on second-degree sexual abuse for charges against a child under 12. Peterson was found guilty during a jury trial in December. Originally, Peterson faced 2 counts. An additional 6 were added during trial. However, Judge Angela Doyle threw out the additional 6 and sentenced Peterson to the original 2. Peterson received 2 25-year consecutive sentences. He must serve 3/4 of each sentence before he has the eligibility for parole. Also, after his release from prison, Peterson would have to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. The first Eggs and Issues event of the year took place this past weekend here in Fort Dodge with several legislators from around the area. Those in attendance were able to ask questions to those legislators. Representative Mike Sexton of Rockwell City responded to issues that were brought up regarding hog confinements.
It's people that think that we aren't doing enough to regulate hog confinements, when in fact Iowa is one of the, as far as livestock, is one of the most heavily regulated states in the Midwest. So I'm not sure what they wanted me to say.
Senator Tim Kreinbrink said that mental health care was a hot topic during the event.
A lot of mental health questions, and I feel that we will be making big strides, especially with the things like that have happened to the Fort Dodge community. I think there's a real awareness and a need for continued health, mental health support.
Representative Ann Meyer talked about the proposal for an access center here in Fort Dodge, and she explained what that access center would provide.
This is a place where law enforcement, possibly family members, will drop off a person in crisis, and it's a 24-hour diffusing of the situation. If they need substance abuse treatment, they'll be able to have that. If they need crisis intervention as far as medication therapy, they'll be able to treat that, but then they may require hospitalization or the problem may be diffused. So that's what that access center or access point is.
Representative Meyer says she's working diligently on getting the access center.
Regardless of what's going on at these different levels, we need the access center in Fort Dodge, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that happens.
Eggs and Issues was held on campus at Iowa Central. High school basketball from last night and games you heard on 92 Rock. The Fort Dodge girls fell 59-47 to Mason City. The Dodgers trailed by just 2 after the first.
Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield. Greg Rapp, a menu engineer, says now calories are displayed.
When people see the calorie counts on the menus, they use that as one of the pieces of making a decision, but then they'll also look for what they want.
He says calories are only one of the factors people consider when choosing food from a menu. Many restaurants are adding the name of the farm that the food comes from to localize the menu.
Five Guys puts the name of the farm that the potatoes come from right out there in front. Or here in California, we have Del Taco, where they have a little chalkboard at the drive-thru that has where the tomatoes are from and who chopped them this morning. It's getting down to telling people about our foods, and when they can hear this information or read this information, it makes the food taste better in their mind, and it has more value.
He says overall, the goal for a restaurant menu is
to help the customer find their new favorite item and help them find something that they're going to come back for. for.
The FDA's menu labeling requirements apply to restaurants and similar retail food establishments that are part of a chain with 20 or more locations. I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield.
Standing up for what's right. Helping out when things go wrong. Seeking the truth and speaking our minds. Not just making records, but breaking them. Leading the way behind the camera, beyond the runway, and on the silver screen. Not just making our mark, but making a difference. Now that's a job for a Girl Scout. Girl Scouts, preparing girls for a lifetime of leadership.
Hi, I'm Arielle Winter. If you're anything like me, your pets are not only your best friends, they're part of your family. American Humane, which has been rescuing animals like Cleo here for more than 100 years, has life-saving tips that can make a big difference in a disaster. When disaster strikes, you want to protect your whole family, including your pets. To help keep your family safe and help our best friends in their worst times, find tips at AmericanHumane.org.
Michael Devine, broadcasting live.
That's right, we're live on the air, and we're glad to welcome back Jim Kirsten of Iowa Central Community College. How are you, Jim?
I'm real good. Thanks for having me.
Well, Jim, I want to bring something up to you in regard to Eggs and Issues that we were both at last Saturday. You were the moderator of the panel, of course, once again. And again, I'm not trying to point a finger and say anything bad about anybody, but there was a woman during Eggs and Issues who had a small sign that she was able to alter with a grease pencil. And especially when Congressman King would speak, she would hold up this little sign. It wasn't huge, but she would hold up this little sign that said racist. And then she'd erase racist and hold up liar. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is we've had a little trouble here in our town in the past. And certainly no one, the woman is allowed to have her opinions. The woman is within her rights to feel the way she does and even to ask harsh questions during Eggs and Issues. But to be disruptive is something else. Now, she wasn't wildly disruptive, but she was disruptive. So the question is, moving forward, because we're going to have a lot of these, and we have a lot of political candidates still moving through our state, what is the best dividing line between having respectful dialogue and having people being able to express their opinion?
Well, it's a good question, and it's a very fine line. And we want to have as much free expression and diversity of discussion as possible. And that's what the Growth Alliance and Iowa Central have been trying to do. Unfortunately, a very small minority of either party come in with extreme views, and they feel that they need to be heard, and the heck with the majority, I'm going to tell you what I think. And so what we tried to do is, after I saw the sign say racist, I said, all right, enough's enough. We're trying to have a civil discussion, and, our rule is if you want to say something, write it down on a note card, give it to the bipartisan sifters, and then send it up. And she bypassed that and just started writing her own comments and questions, which bypasses the intent of what the forum's about. So I think the committee and the Growth Alliance will even allow whiteboards next month. And, we've even gotten to the point where it's not as disruptive this year, but the last couple of years, there's been times when, again, a very small minority ruin it for the majority who want to have a civil talk.
Well, what's behind that sometime is something dangerous. They're trying to disrupt the discussion entirely. If their point of view is not addressed and dominate the discussion, they're not going to allow anybody else to speak. They're not going to allow the political figures on the stage or anyone else to speak. They're just going to disrupt the meeting because we're not addressing.
I agree. And what we're going to do is, if that would continue or something like that, we'd just stop having the forums.
Well, and that could be their goal, which is even more frustrating.
Right.
So
and we don't want to do that.
No, we can't have that. I mean, I saw Jim Stubbs there. He wasn't in uniform, but whatever we have to do, we have to have access to our representatives.
Right.
We absolutely have to. And Tim and Mike and Ann and even Congressman King are pretty transparent, and they're easily reached. Yeah. And by the way, they put up with a lot of nonsense. They let me. They you were down there for a while in the 90s.
It wasn't anything like it is today.
Oh, I know it is, but when you put your cell phone number out there, as Tim, Ann, and Mike do, you get these people with ugly threats and ugly things. I mean, they let me hear a couple of the voicemails they've gotten. It was just, how anybody can be that way, I have no idea. It's vulgar, crude, and disgusting.
Right.
But again, this is only like 2 or 3 people.
Right, and we aren't going to let the minority ruin it for the majority. And I had some good talk with, well, a lot of people called me and said, I'm glad you stopped that bad behavior, and disappointed with the woman, but they were glad they were able to continue the forum in a very good, positive way.
And again, I think we need to emphasize, this woman or anybody has every right to their opinion.
Absolutely.
I did not agree with what she was saying, but this is the United States of America. We should all be able to speak. We should have a public meeting that's orderly and constructive.
And that's what we're trying to do, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that over the years. And that person happens to be of one political flavor, but if the other flavor did the same thing, we would have the same rules. We won't allow and tolerate any disruptive behavior.
Oh, I know that. I just, and I believe everyone should be heard, by the way. And I'm frankly, Jim, I'm a little frustrated with writing things down on a card. I know some other people there on Saturday wish that we didn't have to handle it that way. But we can talk about that at another time. But other than this it turned out to be a minor incident. She complied with your request.
Yes.
And she would hold up a sign that said disagree. Well, nobody cares about that. But racist and liars getting out there.
Yeah.
So that was, otherwise, it was a very constructive eggs and issues.
Yeah, we had a good combination of questions, and we tried to ask them all, and I think they all got good answers, and many people stayed around and talked to the members for a long time. And that's, again, what the forum does. It provides one-on-one access as well as listen to the view as a crowd.
Sometimes when Congressman King shows up, the crazies show up. But this was not one of those times, really.
Right.
And
it was local people that just, they are passionate, but they got to be passionate more respectfully.
Absolutely. We need a vigorous dialogue.
Absolutely.
I mean, some of the guys that were sitting in my section did not like hog confinement buildings.
Right.
And that's their right. They can advocate, they can work, they can vote. Nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
Representative Sexton has been a strong advocate of the pork business in Iowa. End of story.
Right. And they happen to differ, but they treated each other with respect.
Exactly. Representative Sexton is very respectful, and certainly Senator Kreinbrink and Representative Meyer, and I don't think they should be abused there or anywhere.
No. But actually, it was a very good first session of Eggs and Issues, and we look forward to next month. And I think we're going to have a very productive legislative session, even though it's an election year. I think it's going to be a lot of substantive issues looked at. And we, of course, are interested in education funding for our workforce programs and operating the college. And we've had strong support from our local delegations in a bipartisan way for many years. So we feel good about that. And then also, I think they're going to be looking at coming up with funding streams for mental health, which Representative Meyer and others have been involved with. And I think that's going to be very important. And then also the child care. I think the legislators realize for Iowans to go to work, they have to have affordable access to child care. And I think you'll see some incentives and ideas come out that will help us move that on.
Well, I had Supervisor Dinklaw and Campbell here on last Wednesday, and they were talking about the Access Center that we certainly need and were promised. And I'm glad the legislators had a chance to address that. I mean, the supervisors by themselves can't move this issue.
No.
But especially, and I'm still stung over the murder of Reverend Henderson.
Yeah.
Fine man. And we need, and I understand that we have people out there, and I see them, that shouldn't be on the streets, frankly. They're a danger to themselves and others. Yep. Especially this time of year when it's so cold. I see them walking outside. My God.
Yeah.
So we need something. We're decent human beings. We need something, and I hope our legislators can do something down in Des Moines.
Yep, I think we will. And again, I think locally the supervisors are doing their best to bring good ideas forward. They're the ones in the trenches working with the local staff to serve these people. And as my cousin Steve, who's a magistrate, said, it's not rocket science. It's going to take funding and people to train and serve and treat these people. And I think the governor's got a first step with about, I think, a $60 million proposal that will be used to help stabilize that service in Iowa.
That'll be wonderful. You know, we're still talking workforce issues.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a terrific facility at Iowa Central to address that. Are we making progress?
Yeah, we are. In fact, we're having really good discussions, not only for our on-campus programs, but the programs we're providing in our state correctional facilities. You know, we've been operating correctional education in Fort Dodge and Rockwell City for many years, and now we have the federal Pell Grant waiver, which we've now enrolled several hundred those that are incarcerated to get skills. When they get out, they can get a job. And now we're expanding that online degree to all the other prisons in Iowa, which, because we're the only college in Iowa that has a Pell waiver, that's being allowed to be done. So simultaneously, we're talking to the state legislature about getting funding to build a larger industrial training building at the Fort Dodge facility, and we're excited about that.
Yeah, and that's great news always. We talked about welders a while ago, and I shouldn't put this on Dr. Dan Kinney, who was there. It was my pleasure to get to speak with him just for a few minutes at the end of Eggs and Issues. But we had quite a situation with welders for a while. And did I hear that we're still having a problem training enough welders?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the key reasons we're building this internally at the prison, a new training facility, is we need to add about 20 or 25 welding booths. We just don't have the space to train these guys, and they are, definitely interested. Their grade point is 3.4. They want to learn, and when they get out, they'll have a high-paid job in, all across the state they can find. And employers are becoming more willing to work with those that are on the reentry effort, and are very pleased with the results so far.
Those are the things we really need to be discussing at Eggs and Issues, the economy. I just had Steve Peterson on from the Webster County Farm Bureau, and we were talking about the presidential candidates sometimes don't, they will address a lot of social issues, but doggone it, Jim, we need a way to pay the mortgage and to put food on the table. And some of the jobs that people who are untrained can get don't pay very much. They're not a living wage. But if you can get a little training, a new life comes about, which is a great thing.
Yes, very much. And I think you'll see a lot of that discussion move forward at the state level.
I hope so, Jim. Keep us posted, will you?
Yeah, I will. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. That's Jim Kirsten, AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Equal opportunity is the cornerstone of the American dream. Being employed gives us the confidence to be financially independent. We feel useful and respected. But what if you were one of the 81% of adults with developmental differences who do not have a paid job? Join the SunTrust Foundation in supporting Autism Speaks, Best Buddies, and Special Olympics in creating pathways to 1 million employment and leadership opportunities for this talented community. Visit deliveringjobs.org to learn more.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. March corn up 6 at 386.5. May up 5 1/4 cents at 392. July up a nickel at 397 1/4. September up 2 3/4 at 394 1/2. March soybeans down 2 1/4 at 895. May down 2 cents at 909. July down 2 1/4 at 922 1/4. August down 2 1/4 at 927. Soybean meal down 20 cents a ton at 297.60. February live cattle down a dime at 122.15. April down 60 cents at 120.70. January feeder cattle closed up 15 cents at 142.05. March up 22 at 135.40. February lean hogs up 27 cents at 66.22. April up 85 at 71.30. May up 67 cents at 77.65. And June up 47 cents at 83.97. From the Iowa Power Farming Show, I'm Dwayne Murley.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company helps you customize your home insurance so you only pay for what you need. Unlike things you paid for you didn't need, like the Vacnado 2000. A Wi-Fi connected vacuum that uploads Dust Bunny data to the cloud for real-time optimization. Whatever that means. But really, it's just a very expensive doggy chew toy. With Liberty Mutual, get customized home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
You are listening to AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge, and I want to know 4 o'clock in the afternoon. City Manager David Feerick, afternoon. KVFD Fort Dodge.
Hi, this is Gary Rima, the voice of the University of Northern Iowa Panthers, and this is the home for Panther Sports, the voice of Fort Dodge, KVFD, Fort Dodge.
The impeachment trial turns a page. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. The defense wrapping up opening arguments today by rejecting the impeachment case against the president as being too vague.
It is so malleable, it in effect recreates the offense of maladministration that the framers expressly rejected.
Lawyer Patrick Philbin says the standards used don't define a specific offense. Democrats are still pushing for new witnesses, especially former National Security Advisor John Bolton. A decision on witnesses expected later this week, but tomorrow questions begin.
This is how it'll work. You'll have the Republicans pose a series of questions. Then you'll have the Democrats pose a series of questions. They will toggle back and forth hour by hour. Chief Justice John Roberts told everyone, he said, I want to keep these answers limited to 5 minutes.
Fox's Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill. Meantime, President Trump unveiling the White House plan for Mideast peace while acknowledging the inherent difficulties.
But we have to get it done. We have an obligation to humanity to get it done.
It's a proposed two-state solution he's urging the Palestinians to study.
Part of the negotiate with Israel, achieve the criteria for statehood, and become a truly independent and wonderful state.
It also calls for billions in commercial investment for a Palestinian state, but would allow Israel continued control over settlements in the West Bank. The Palestinian leaders' initial reaction, 1,000 no's, one Hamas official referring to it as conspiracies. A new virus now blamed for more than 100 deaths in China and over 4,000 illnesses.
Part of the risk we face right now is that we don't yet know everything we need to know about this virus.
But U.S. Health Secretary Alex Azar says they can still prepare and respond. The number of confirmed U.S. cases remains at 5, and all of those patients had traveled in China. America is listening. Fox News.
This is Peter on his motorcycle.
The open road!
And this is Peter off his motorcycle.
Please move your paper off my desk. Thank you.
On his motorcycle.
I feel so alive!
Off his motorcycle.
I feel like we covered that already, so...
On.
Wow! Look at the ocean!
Off.
Look at this article I found about urban planning.
You're better on your bike. Progressive helps keep you on it. Get a quote in as little as 3 minutes at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. But not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Estranged husband charged with murdering a mother of 5 in Connecticut is now in critical condition. Fotis Doulos was found unresponsive in his car at his Farmington home earlier today. First taken to a hospital in Connecticut and then airlifted to another in New York.
He's being sent to be treated in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. This chamber being used to help rejuvenate the oxygen in his blood after the carbon monoxide poisoning. He was scheduled to appear inside court in Stamford today on an emergency bond hearing after state prosecutors said that his bond may be in question and might have been revoked, which meant that he might have been going back to jail today.
Fox's Laura Ingle, Jennifer Doulos went missing last May after dropping off their children at school. Fotis Doulos has denied any involvement in her disappearance. A man from Florida accused of harassing the parents of the victims of a Connecticut school shooting is now under arrest.
A 73-year-old Florida man known for instigating conflict with the parents of Sandy Hook school shooting victims is now in trouble with the law for unlawfully possessing ID information of one of the Sandy Hook parents. Police say Wolfgang Halbig of Lake County near Orlando had been emailing people the Social Security number and other information of Leonard Posner, whose 6-year-old son Noah was shot to death that day. Halbig has a record of harassing Posner and has been sued for broadcasts on the Alex Jones internet shows that the Sandy Hook shooting was faked. In Miami, Eben Brown, Fox News.
Still no reports of any casualties or any heavy damage after a powerful earthquake, magnitude 7.7, struck in the Caribbean Sea between Jamaica and eastern Cuba. It also triggered some tsunami alert messages for Jamaica, Cuba, and Grand Cayman Island. I'm Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones. A Fort Dodge man has been sentenced to prison for half a century on sexual abuse charges against a child. Joseph D. Peterson has been sentenced to 50 years following his conviction back in December on second-degree sexual abuse for charges against a child under 12. Peterson was found guilty during a jury trial in December. Originally, Peterson faced 2 counts. An additional 6 were added during trial. However, Judge Angela Doyle threw out the additional 6 and sentenced Peterson to the original 2. Peterson received 2 25-year consecutive sentences. He must serve 3/4 of each sentence before he has the eligibility for parole. Also, after his release from prison, Peterson would have to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. The first Eggs and Issues event of the year took place this past weekend here in Fort Dodge with several legislators from around the area. Those in attendance were able to ask questions to those legislators. Representative Mike Sexton of Rockwell City responded to issues that were brought up regarding hog confinements.
It's people that think that we aren't doing enough to regulate hog confinements, when in fact Iowa is one of the, as far as livestock, is one of the most heavily regulated states in the Midwest. So I'm not sure what they wanted me to say.
Senator Tim Kreinbrink said that mental health care was a hot topic during the event.
A lot of mental health questions, and I feel that we will be making...
law enforcement, possibly family members, will drop off a person in crisis, and it's a 24-hour diffusing of the situation. If they need substance abuse treatment, they'll be able to have that. If they need crisis intervention as far as medication therapy, they'll be able to treat that, but then they may require hospitalization, or the problem may be diffused. That's what that access center, access point is.
Representative Meyer says she's working diligently on getting the access center.
Regardless of what's going on at these different levels, we need the access center in Fort Dodge, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that happens.
Eggs and Issues was held on campus at Iowa Central. High school basketball from last night and games you heard on 92 Rock. The Fort Dodge girls fell 59-47 to Mason City. The Dodgers trailed by just 2 after the first quarter, but Mason City would outscore Fort Dodge 26-8 in the second quarter to build a double-digit lead. 3 Mason City players in double figures, led by a game high from Anna Dietz of 17. The Dodgers with 4 players in double figures, Tori Bennett and Aaliyah Palmer with 12. Cheyenne Miller-Hamid and Jalen Adams both added 10. In the boys' game, the Dodgers would fall 72-64. Dodgers started slow and trailed by 12 after the first quarter. They would rally in the second half, cutting the lead down to 5 in the fourth quarter, but couldn't get any closer. 4 Mason City players in double figures, led by Carson Thomas and Jeff Scogan with 16. For the Dodgers, senior guard Ty Kershaw had a game-high 24, and junior Dason Clayton added 16. The Dodger boys back in action tonight, a boys-only game hosting Johnston for a 7:45 tip-off. You can hear the game on your home for Dodger Sports, 92 Rock. Over on 105.9 The Beach, the South Central Calhoun Titans back in action tonight. They'll be on the road taking on West Bend Mallard. A 5:45 scheduled start time for the girls' pregame show with the boys to follow. And the Titan boys look to continue their hot streak. They've won their last 8 in a row. The St. Edmund Gales will be on the road taking on Algona tonight on Sunny 99.7. The Gales boys have won their last 3 out of 4 and looking to knock off an Algona team that comes in with a record of 9-3. All 3 of those games available on our website, yourfortdodge.com. Fort Dodge Wrestling with a win in dominant fashion over rival Mason City last night, 77-3. 8 Dodgers with pinfall wins on tonight. That's your Alpha Media News Update from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom. I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Cloudy skies this afternoon with a high of 23. Winds out of the north around 5 miles per hour. Cloudy skies expected again tonight. Chance of snow. Lows dip down to about 15. High temperatures reach up to 26. Tomorrow, overcast skies. A dusting of snow tonight through Thursday night. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 22.
Mom, Dad, I'm getting married. That's wonderful, dear.
Congratulations. So have you decided on a date?
Yes, this Saturday. What? Are you serious? We need to plan. There's so much to do.
What about the church? The flowers, music, food, inviting everyone?
You would not want to be faced with those hurried decisions then. Why do that to your family with your own final arrangements? I invite you to sit down with us at Gunderson's to pre-plan your funeral. Pre-planning allows you to make thoughtful decisions with a clear mind. Give us a call at Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services, Fort Dodge.
The annual Customer Appreciation Sale is on at Party Productions and the other store, too. You heard that right. The annual Customer Appreciation Sale has been extended to the other store in the Crossroads Mall this year. That means all NFL merchandise is 20% off. Melissa and Doug is 20% off. Game Bibs, 20% off. School Spirit, 20% off. Wine, $2 off. Don't miss the Customer Appreciation Sale now through March 7th at Party Productions, 1919 First Avenue North, and the other store in the Crossroads Mall, Fort Dodge.
It's Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
Somehow this seems like appropriate music for our next guest. I don't know why. Yeah, that's Pony by Genuine. And, of course, David Ferrick, city manager, is everything like Genuine. So let's bring it on here. We'll see if city manager Ferrick is Dr. Evil today or if he's his other persona. What was your other persona?
What was my other persona?
I can't remember right off the hand. You know, it just went right out of my head. It happens when you're an older person. You know, but I was giving everybody over at the city names from the Austin Powers series of movies. But I couldn't give any of the women names because all the women in the Austin Powers series, their names are a vulgarity.
Yeah, that wouldn't go over well.
But they were. I had Vicky Reek in here one time, and Vicky's a great girl. I like her a lot. But I couldn't give her a name from Austin Powers. It was just too gross. So we actually had a city council meeting last night?
We did.
All right.
We did. We had a city council meeting.
Did you smack those councilmen around and whip them in shape or what?
No, I don't do that.
I know you don't. They'd get together and fire you.
Yeah.
Well, we are talking storm sewers.
We are. We're doing a big storm sewer study, kind of like we did with the sanitary sewers several years ago. Is do an evaluation of our storm sewer system, get true and accurate mapping, up-to-date mapping of our system, and that would help us identify capacities of what our systems are, so that when we look at making fixes to various areas, we can see what is the true limitation of the existing storm sewer. So as we plan on making fixes, we can do it as economical as possible. What the stuff we've done, recently, like in the last 10 years, as far as big storm sewer fixes, I mean, we basically are just building a brand new system. If you talk about the Rolling Hills, we just put in a brand new big pipe so that Rolling Hills wouldn't flood again. The stuff at the mall, the East Region drainage, I mean, that was 2 big detention basins and new pipes and a really big build out to that system. But as we continue along with this, because those were 2 areas we know we had really drastic problems, and we know we got some problems downtown we got to deal with too. But as we move forward with this and having this study in hand, we'll be able to identify areas and come up with very cost-effective ways of fixing it, because we won't have to build maybe not a whole brand new system, but realize that we got choke points in the system where pipes are too small, and we can just expand those pipes and hopefully save ourselves a bunch of money. I think over the long term, like 20, 30 years, this study will actually more than pay for itself in helping us make the right decisions when it comes to stormwater drainage. And then the other thing it'll help us with, one is we'll have accurate maps too, is that if other regulations come down the line as far as non-point pollution sources, which basically means cities have to start managing their stormwater or treating their stormwater, this will help us kind of identify how the most effective ways of doing that are.
Treating stormwater, what do you mean by that?
Well, that, treating in one way or a fashion. I mean, for example, right now, I wouldn't say it's relatively new, but it's been around for a while, but the federal and state regulators now require, you see this around at new construction sites, erosion screens and all that stuff, hay bales or stuff around, storm sewers or stuff like that. We used to not have to do that before. Remember, because a construction site was just a construction site. You didn't really care where the muddy water went.
Yeah.
But now that's a requirement that's been passed on by the feds.
Really?
And the cities are required to enforce. And more of that could be down the line. And it may not be so much on the erosion and the construction sites. It could be for other contaminants that could get into rivers and streams from your storm sewer system. I mean, one of the things is obviously, we put salt on the roads for to help melt the ice. Well, there could come a time where the environmental groups or organizations or agencies don't want us to do that anymore, and we have to come up with other ways to treat the water before it gets into the rivers and streams and stuff like that. So that could be coming. I'm not saying we did this project for that by any means. That's just me thinking down the line, years or decades from now, that other regulations could be coming on that. But really, for the short term, it's know what our capacity, know what the system is, find the areas that really have problems that should get fixed right away, and then help us plan for, effective stormwater upgrades in the future. Because we have an old town, we have an old system, and we have stuff that's been designed not to current standards that doesn't really do well in draining our city.
Is that a problem? I mean, you said our town isn't designed to current standards because it's an old town, or worse to that effect. I mean, are we under pressure to update or not?
Well, we're under our own pressure to update because we know where
You're putting pressure on yourself.
We know where we have problems. I mean, obviously, you get a really heavy rain, and you can tell where the backups, where the backups are and what needs to be fixed. We know we have an issue we're working on and trying to get in our capital plan to help drain the downtown, and probably
help drain the downtown.
Yeah, there's some areas in downtown that back up, and there's inadequate capacity getting the water from the downtown area to the river. So,
are you talking on Central or?
Well, maybe not so much like directly in Central, just in areas in downtown. 12th Street and First Avenue South has got. We've had some issues backing up there that we're trying to get a handle on. But ultimately, it involves bringing a pretty large pipe, basically. I wouldn't say all the way from the river, but pretty much all the way from the river up into the downtown area to handle the drainage.
Okay. All right. So, David Ferrick is our guest, City Manager David Ferrick, and he's not Dr. Evil today, so that's good. I'll have to listen to last week's SoundCloud post from City Manager Ferrick when we gave him a name for when he's being a good guy, as opposed to Dr. Evil. So there we are. By the way, you can always find recordings of these interviews I do with the city manager or anybody on my Facebook page at AM 1400 KVFD or SoundCloud at JMike1400. So we did a little work last night at that city council meeting.
Yeah, a couple engineering contracts. The other one was the I don't know if we got a catchy name for it yet, but running a water main loop. Hired McClure to do the design for a water main loop of Northwest Fort Dodge, basically, kind of up and around, up by Willow Ridge, and then around and then down 169. We were going to start the design process for that water main loop to. We have some significant dead ends, longer systems that aren't looped. Water mains should be looped. There should be ability to get access to water from two sources, two directions is ideal. And in that part of town, we have some dead ends. So this loop would help eliminate the dead ends. And I mean, the first thing we'll see about it is, like the pressure out at Starlight in that area is not great, and it's not great if you go and start trying to add some significant development in there. So this loop would actually increase the pressure, and hopefully would help encourage some development along 169, either north of Starlight or around that intersection, which we've had some interest.
Do we? We have had some interest.
Yeah, there's been some. I mean, you obviously see, was it Todd's? What's Todd's last name? His electrical.
Todd Baker.
Baker's electrical thing going in. So
yeah, he put in a big.
Yeah, it's a nice building.
Todd's done all right. Good for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
good for him.
Great.
He has quite a few guys hired over there, I think. Put a little pressure on the mayor. Something that caught my eye in the paper this morning when we were talking about budgeting and contract sign, we hired Winger Contracting Company to install a new chiller in the Fort Dodge Library. Are we talking some sort of air conditioning unit, or?
That's basically what they call it. It's an air conditioning unit, but it's a larger unit that's sometimes referred to as a chiller when you do buildings like that. I mean, I can't go into too much specifics about what different mechanically a chiller is from an air conditioner, the standard air conditioner you'd have in your house.
Right.
Only larger, but so that's really what it is. The air conditioning unit at the library is or has failed. I think it maybe was failing last fall, and we pretty much knew by the time we got into the heat of the summer it would not work well. So we've got a contract to get it replaced before summer.
I still think a public library, I know when we built this one, there was a lot of pushback on the idea that we needed a city library at all. The internet was coming around and all these things, but I know we use that library over there for a variety of reasons, and we have to have, to me, it's a learning center. A public library is a city learning center, and I'll tell you, most of my education came from libraries that I was around over the years, because I was too stubborn to be taught anything, so I had to go find it myself.
Yeah, I mean, that library is used a bunch. There's a bunch of different programming down there, and there's a bunch of, it's widely used by a big portion of the population for books or other sources of media.
I just love to be in a library or a bookstore. I do. Well, I'm losing my voice pretty fast here.
Again, I know. I thought you'd be getting better.
I am getting better, but it's the, I said this earlier today. Danny Plotz was here last Thursday and said, I've had it for 3 months.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hear that. Have you been okay? Nobody, has it been over the city or not?
What, sick?
Sick, yeah.
Personally, I was sick over the Christmas holiday with a cold, and then I got another one just a week ago, and I'm starting to get over it, except I'm coughing now that I'm on your show.
Let's go to the phones. AM 1400 KVFD. Good afternoon. You're on the air with the city manager.
What's this I hear that the city is going to raise the levy rate for taxes pretty kind of high up this year?
No, we don't plan on raising the tax rate. We haven't presented the full tax rate to the city council yet. That will be coming in February, but the work that City Clerk Jeff Nemmers and I have been doing on the budget, we intend to present a tax rate that is the same as it was last year. You may be referring to, and I haven't checked if it hit the paper yet, a public notice that we're required to do by the new state law that really doesn't address the tax rate. It addresses a certain portion of the tax levy on what it was last fiscal year and what it is anticipated to be for the next fiscal year, and that will show an increase. But that's not it's not our full tax levy, and it's just a portion of it, and it really doesn't refer to the overall tax rate. It's more actual dollars one year to the actual or proposed dollars the next year.
So the levy is going to stay. It's looking like the levy is going to stay the same as it has the last few years.
Well, not yours. Yours is going up.
No. So within the city of Fort Dodge, as far as the city of Fort Dodge's portion, we anticipate the tax levy. Well, I should say it differently, just to be clear. Jeff Nemmers and I intend to propose a tax levy rate that's the same that it has been in past years. Now, the city council can choose to adjust it from there. Most likely they would adjust it down versus adjusting it up, but they could choose to adjust it up or down when they make that decision. But the actual the rate that we intend to propose is the same. Now, your actual taxes you pay could change if the value of your house or property has changed, or the rate being charged by other taxing districts has gone up or down. I think I've heard.
Yeah.
And I don't want to.
We all know the assessments went up.
Yeah.
No.
So your actual taxes could go up when you charge adders the same or even a less rate because your value is higher.
Okay. I guess that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yeah. That guy calls about every week and keeps an eye on you, doesn't he?
Good.
That's okay. You know, you got sometimes. He just. I mean, there's just a misunderstanding. Sometimes it can be cleared up.
Well, yeah, and there's a state mandated form and a method you're supposed to use. And I looked at it, and Jeff and I were looking at it together. And we're like, well, this is really going to confuse people and end up where people think their taxes are going to go up, which it really doesn't. You can't determine just from that report whether any individual's taxes are going to change. Yeah. So
David Ferrick's our guest, the city manager. If you have a question or comment for the city manager, it's 515-955-1400. What else happened at the council meeting last night? Are we covering anything or not?
We didn't talk about the petition on the deer. I mean, that would be interesting.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Are you a hunter?
Yeah, I could go blow away a couple of deer. I could string them up on Central Avenue, clean them, and take them home and have deer meat chili for a couple of years. I mean, there has been a problem almost since I lived in Fort Dodge, which is a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a curious. I mean, so we got a petition with 300 signatures, more than 300 signatures, asking us to do something about it. A lot of cities do allow urban hunt and create urban hunting zones. So that's something we'll be looking at probably in the relatively near future, because the council would have to pass an ordinance to basically allow hunting, or pass an amendatory ordinance allowing hunting in city limits. Because right now you're not allowed to shoot a bow. Is that the correct term? Shoot a gun, fire a bow. I don't know what the
both.
I don't know what the term is for bow. I'm not a hunter.
Yeah.
In city limits. So that would have to be amended, and then the cities usually put in rules and then determine, with working with the DNR, okay, just how many tags are we going to allow, and what are the zones, and are there going to be certain tags per zone, certain hunters per zones, and then put that in place before the fall for the hunting season.
Sure. You're getting it, aren't you?
Yeah. So yeah, it would be something we're working on, which will be good to get input on what the community thinks.
Well, you just hire a bunch of guys like me, and we'll get our guns out and go, yeehaw! And shooting deer down Central Avenue or in your backyard or whatever. I don't think that should be a problem.
But not in Olson Park.
Not in Olson Park. Keep an eye. Yeah, God. Can't believe that. Was that a couple of years ago somebody shot a deer at Olson Park?
Oh, that's probably been a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time ago.
We had a few years ago or not even a few months ago, I think, where a bunch of them got loose because it looked like somebody intentionally cut
Brilliant. That's just
cut the fence. But they all came back because why? We feed them.
That's right. You always come back to the food. All right, David Ferrick's been our guest. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
All right, this is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine, the doctor of truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
Hey, yeah, we're going to shoot here in just a minute, I think. It's 4:28. We're going to do the news, then we'll have City Councilman Andy Fritz.
No, not you. You, the bow-legged one. Yeah. What's your name?
At Capital One, you can open a new savings account in about 5 minutes and earn 5 times the national average. Banking with Capital One means 5 times the savings to help pay for your perfect honeymoon. Or 5 times the savings toward your family's perfect vacation.
Big fan of water rides.
It's time to help make your savings goals come true. This is Banking Reimagined. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Rate comparison based on FDIC national rate. Capital One NA member FDIC.
Save the date for the 25th annual cake auction that benefits the Domestic Sexual Assault Outreach Center. Saturday, April 18th at the East Campus of Iowa Central. Come bid on tons of live and silent auction items that are paired with delicious cakes and cupcakes. With your help, DSOC can continue to provide safety, support, and hope to victims and survivors in our communities. If you would like to make a donation or volunteer, call 955-2273 or send us a message on Facebook. Don't miss DSOC's 25th annual cake auction this April.
From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones. A Fort Dodge man has been sentenced to prison for half a century on sexual abuse charges against a child. Joseph D. Peterson has been sentenced to 50 years following his conviction back in December on second-degree sexual abuse for charges against a child under 12. Peterson was found guilty during a jury trial in December. Originally, Peterson faced 2 counts. An additional 6 were added during trial. However, Judge Angela Doyle threw out the additional 6 and sentenced Peterson to the original 2. Peterson received 2 25-year consecutive sentences. He must serve 3/4 of each sentence before he has the eligibility for parole. Also, after his release from prison, Peterson would have to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. The first Eggs and Issues event of the year took place this past weekend here in Fort Dodge with several legislators from around the area. Those in attendance were able to ask questions to those legislators. Representative Mike Sexton of Rockwell City responded to issues that were brought up regarding hog confinements.
It's people that think that we aren't doing enough to regulate hog confinements, when in fact Iowa is one of the, as far as livestock, is one of the most heavily regulated states in the Midwest. So I'm not sure what they wanted me to say.
Senator Tim Kreinbrink said that mental health care was a hot topic during the event.
A lot of mental health questions, and I feel that we will be making big strides, especially with the things like that have happened to the Fort Dodge community. I think there's a real awareness and a need for continued mental health support.
Representative Ann Meyer talked about the proposal for an access center here in Fort Dodge, and she explained what that access center would provide.
This is a place where law enforcement, possibly family members, will drop off a person in crisis, and it's a 24-hour diffusing of the situation. If they need substance abuse treatment, they'll be able to have that. If they need crisis intervention as far as medication therapy, they'll be able to treat that, but then they may require hospitalization or the problem may be diffused. That's what that access center or access point is.
Representative Meyer says she's working diligently on getting the access center.
Regardless of what's going on at these different levels, we need the access center in Fort Dodge, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that happens.
Eggs and Issues was held on campus at Iowa Central. High school basketball from last night and games you heard on 92 Rock. The Fort Dodge girls fell 59-47 to Mason City. The Dodgers trailed by just 2 after the first quarter, but Mason City would outscore Fort Dodge 26-8 in the second quarter to build a double-digit lead. 3 Mason City players at double figures, led by a game high from Anna Dietz of 17. The Dodgers with 4 players in double figures, Tori Bennett and Aaliyah Palmer with 12. Cheyenne Miller-Hamid and Jalen Adams both added 10. In the boys' game, the Dodgers would fall 72-64. Dodgers started slow and trailed by 12 after the first quarter. They would rally in the second half, cutting the lead down to 5 in the fourth quarter, but couldn't get any closer. 4 Mason City players in double figures, led by Carson Thomas and Jeff Scogan with 16. For the Dodgers, senior guard Ty Kershaw had a game-high 24, and junior Dason Clayton added 16. The Dodger boys back in action tonight, a boys-only game hosting Johnston for a 7:45 tip-off. You can hear the game on your home for Dodger Sports, 92 Rock. Over on 105.9 The Beach, the South Central Calhoun Titans back in action tonight. They'll be on the road taking on West Bend Mallard. A 5:45 scheduled start time for the girls' pregame show with the boys to follow. And the Titan boys look to continue their hot streak. They've won their last 8 in a row. The St. Edmund Gales will be on the road taking on Algona tonight on Sunny 99.7. The Gales boys have won their last 3 out of 4 and looking to knock off an Algona team that comes in with a record of 9-3. All 3 of those games available on our website, yourfortdodge.com. Fort Dodge Wrestling with a win in dominant fashion over rival Mason City last night, 77-3. 8 Dodgers with pinfall wins on tonight. That's your Alpha Media News Update from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom. I'm Rob Jones.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. It's 4:34. First of all, in the weather, Not too bad for this time of year. It's 21 degrees, of course, cloudy, overnight snow, patchy fog, otherwise cloudy with a steady temperature around 18 degrees. Tomorrow, slight chance of snow, patchy fog before noon. Our high will be 25 degrees. On Thursday, slight chance of snow. We're not talking any accumulation here. Cloudy with a high of 30 on Thursday. On Friday, a slight chance of snow before noon, mostly cloudy with a high of 34. Saturday, it'll be sunny with a high of 35. On Monday, it'll be sunny with a high of 37, a little windy. This week is Super Bowl Sunday, too, isn't it, now that I think about it? Yes, it is. We're going to talk with Andy Fritz, City Councilman, here in just a minute. First, we're going to talk obituaries, and the obituaries this hour, of course, brought to us by the historic Bruce Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South here in Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucefuneralhome.com. Mr. Austin J. Black has passed away at the age of 53. Austin Black died on Tuesday the 21st. Services will be held in South Dakota for Mr. Austin J. Black. And, of course, Dean Scharf has passed away. Dean's from Duncombe, and his services were 10 o'clock this morning. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South, Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucefuneralhome.com. Andy Fritz in 30 seconds at AM 1400 KVFD.
When Allstate agents and employees go to work every day, their number one priority is protecting what matters most to you. For military veterans, that instinct to protect also comes naturally. No wonder thousands of veterans build good careers with Allstate. And now, Allstate is ranked the number one employer on the 2020 Military Friendly Employers list. You're in good hands with Allstate.
For career opportunities or to get a quote, contact Allstate today. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
All right, now joining us on the phone is the City Councilman of Truth. That's Andy Fritz. How are you, Andy?
I'm doing good, Mike. How are you?
Well, I'm outstanding. I'm just outstanding. I gave David Furyk, who's on right before you, I gave him a positive name last week to kind of go side by side with his Dr. Evil thing that I usually call him. Right. But every now and then he does good. So he had to have a positive name, and it just occurred to me that I gave him the name of City Manager of Truth.
Oh.
But you can be the Councilman of Truth. That's okay.
I like that.
Minky can be Minky.
Porn star, whatever.
Yeah, porn star, philosopher.
Yeah.
That's our boy. But we had Andy, you're getting back in the saddle here. Is this your second council meeting?
Yes, second council meeting. Had a few workshops in between too. So yeah, getting back into the groove.
Okay, looking for that big paycheck at the end of the month, huh?
Oh yeah, it's huge.
What is it, $500 a month, or is it even that much?
It's like $350 a month.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, my hat's off to all you people that do that job for that money. I'll tell you.
Well, it's not for the money. It's because I love the town.
Well, and that's. I'm sure if you ask most people, that's what they would say.
Yeah.
Some people are just troublemakers, but that's not you.
No.
Anyway, what happened at the council last night? We just talked to Furyk, of course.
Yeah.
And,
so, talking to Furyk, I heard you guys talking about the storm sewer.
Yep.
The water main loop. The deer population got brought up. Those were kind of the big things that really happened. And talking about the deer population with that petition we received, I've seen on Facebook now that people are already saying, leave the deer alone. They were here first. We moved into their
You
area.
cannot, Menke pays attention to that damn Facebook. You cannot pay attention to Facebook.
Well, I pay attention to it. I just don't respond to it.
Maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah. So, I've seen deer walking down my street on South 25th Street, just down the sidewalk like it's nobody's business. I've been by Walgreens and see 13 to 15 deer crossing 5th Avenue South, that's north of the J-Mars.
Oh, yeah, I've chased deer right down 15th Street, right into town. Yeah. I've chased them all the way down the street. It wasn't my intention to chase them, but they got out in front of the car.
Yeah. So we definitely have an issue with the deer herd in the area. It's just becoming too prolific. They're coming into people's yards, eating their plants, eating bird feed, and it's easy to feed them.
And the one thing deer do, and they like to do, is make other deer. And,
Oh, yes, they do.
So they'll keep right on going.
Yeah.
But of course, and I've hit 3 or 4 deer in my life, and it can be very dangerous. I mean, I was left unscarred, but I had a wrecked car one time. I had a big doe out on Highway 4, I think.
Yeah.
And that was the end of that car.
Yeah. So this is something that the council definitely needs to look at. We're not doing something that hasn't been done before. Other communities in Iowa and across the nation have implemented some sort of hunting. So we just need to look at what they've done, make the decision as far as what makes sense for Fort Dodge, and just move forward with that. It should be pretty simple.
Well, what do you envision is happening with the deer? I mean, are we going to have we're going to hire hunters, and how are they going to do it, or have you got that far in your thinking or not?
Well, in the past, I have thought just to sell tags to residents, and make them do some sort of accuracy test. Put them on a range with a bow, show that they can responsibly handle and shoot a bow, and let them buy a tag and get a deer, whether it's on public property, the different parks down in Loomis Park, or even in the fields around Fort Dodge. On 15th Avenue South, you can drive down there any day and see 4 or 5 deer just standing out in the middle of the field, and there you go. The guy can just pick one of those off and get rid of one more deer.
So you would think bow hunters?
Yeah.
Because I was kind of bugging Ferrick about getting my shotgun out and running up and down 15th Street going, yeehaw!
Just when you do that, let me know, and I'm going to stay home.
Well, yeah. Well, as I told Ferrick, I could have deer meat chili for several years. And, man, I tell you, I can make some pretty good deer meat chili.
Yeah. The other thing that I talked about with a couple of the councilmen is if we did hire a service, a hunting, company to come in, possibly donate the meat to the Beacon or the Lotus Project.
I'm sorry, Andy, you broke up there just for a second. What were you saying?
So if we would hire a company to come in and do the hunt for us, if we could donate the meat to the Beacon of Hope Lotus Project and help get food in bellies of people that need it.
Do they? I'm a little surprised to hear they have companies or businesses that go around and clean up towns from deer.
I don't know if there is, but it's definitely something to look into. I would think there would be somebody out there that would come into town and clean it up for us.
Well, I could find 5-6 guys here in the next 10 minutes, Andy.
Easy.
I mean, we could do that with no problem whatsoever.
Yep.
Now, whether they'd be the type of guys that you'd like, I don't know.
I probably would, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, we got plenty of local deer hunters. I mean, and they're responsible people.
Yeah.
I don't mean to portray hunters negatively. I've been one myself 50 years. I mean, not so much deer, but I've shot my share of pheasants and ducks and those things over the years.
Yep.
And I know a lot of deer hunters who take pride in what they do.
Yeah,
That's why I can describe it.
Most hunters I know are some of the most respectful people. They go out there, they do whatever they're doing, shoot the deer, clean it, and they do it all with the utmost respect to the animal and to the sport.
Absolutely. And most hunters are very respectful of the rights of others. There was a little bit of a thing going on there for a while that the farmers never wanted us on their land, but due to education, I think we got that cleared up. But anyway, so we are going to do something about the deer population.
What was that? I'm sorry, Mike.
So we are going to do something about the deer population.
As far as I'm concerned, yes. I can't speak for the other 6 council members, but in my mind, something needs done.
Yeah, obviously something needs to be done. I think we've been kind of ignoring it for a while.
Yes, we have.
But I see, I'm on Facebook too, and I see a lot of people posting pictures of deer in their backyard. Jane Morgan, one of my coworkers here, had a picture of a fox at her door. Which shouldn't surprise anybody. We live in a rural area. I mean,
yeah.
And frankly, deer is a beautiful animal. I don't want to sit here and chortle over, a deer being shot. But man, they can be dangerous. Certainly around harvest time when they're chased out of the fields. I mean, you always hear of accidents involving deers and cars, and it's just. And again, they can reproduce like crazy.
Well, many a year ago, when we still had Randall's grocery store, I do remember a deer got into the store.
I remember that. I lived about a block from Randall's at the time, and that was our store.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it got loose in Randall's, and man, that was quite the mess.
Yeah, and nobody was hurt that, but realistically, if there'd have been a child in there, it could have been trampled. I'm not saying deer are evil creatures.
No.
But you get one.
They're wild animals.
Exactly.
I mean, that particular deer crashed right through the glass door.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
God, I remember that. Yeah, that was probably 20 years ago anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little more than that. I don't know, but yeah, I certainly remember that.
Yeah.
I miss Randall's store. But anyway, Andy Fritz is our guest, and this is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. It seemed to be a productive meeting that you had at the City Council last night.
Yeah.
Was there any discussion or pushback from any of the council members on any of the items approved that were in the paper this morning? Did you agree with all of the spending that was approved by the council last night?
Yes, I did, and every council member did. The one question that did come up was regarding a building for demolition. That's down on First Avenue South.
Right.
There's an electrical service on the side of that building that some of the street lights are tied to, and that needs to be buried before they can tear down the building. So that's going to add some cost to that project. And the concern was, do we bid that out or do we just do a change order? And we decided to just do a change order on that.
You know, Menke, the mayor, and I, we have talked over the years about the need to get rid of some of these old houses that cannot be occupied. Are we going to move forward aggressively on that?
I think you'll see it. We've started pretty aggressive down on the 8th Street area, 300 North block. We own almost 2 whole blocks of property there, and we keep buying more and more. I think you're going to see us continue down that road. Get these blighted houses gone.
Yeah, well, I live over here in 4th Avenue North, and I can give you a list of houses that need to be bulldozed today. Some of them are not looking too good, bro. Just not looking too good.
Well, send us that list. We'll get to work on it.
Okay. I'm sure my neighbors are glad to hear me say that. But anyway. So what else is going on over at the council or in the city there, Andy?
Well, I tell you, I just got an email today from the Iowa DOT. There's going to be a public information meeting on February 18th between 5 and 6:30 at the public library. The DOT is looking to replace a bridge, and I've talked with Chad Schaefer, and it sounds like it's the southwest bridge on Kenyon Road.
Southwest Bridge where now?
Kenyon Road. So
okay.
From Kenyon Road southwest out of town towards the hospital. Sounds like they're going to be replacing that bridge.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I can take from this. Again, on February 18th, there's going to be more information for the public.
You know, Andy, I don't know what the city council can do, but we had exit issues Saturday out at Iowa Central, and I had our state representatives here on Friday, and we had supervisors Denclaw and Campbell in here on Wednesday, and we're concerned about an access center.
Yeah.
You know, as I mentioned to David a little earlier, I'm still burned pretty bad about what happened to Pastor Henderson.
Yeah.
And I see people on our streets, Andy, even this time of year, and they're homeless. They may have a mental problem. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Right.
But we need something. We need an access center, and whatever kind of push we can give from all levels of government city, county, and state, we need that access center here.
We do. And I went to the city-county meeting last week, and Mark Campbell and Keith were both in that meeting. And that we talked a lot about the access center, trying to get that to Fort Dodge, and what we can do for funding as far as getting grants from the state or whatever. But that is definitely needed in the area, and I can almost 100% guarantee that every council member would agree, and if we had to put funding towards it, we would.
Yeah, you know the story. Keith and Mark were understandably upset that it seemed like we were promised this access center and then it was pulled away.
Yeah.
No, that's not the way we do business. It just isn't.
No.
So I hope there's something that can be done anyway.
Yeah.
Andy Fritz is our guest. City Councilman Andy Fritz is our guest. This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Yeah, you don't need to feel exclusive on that one there, Andy. I'll be bringing that access center up to everybody.
Okay. Good. The more we talk about it, the more traction it gains.
Well, that's right, and maybe we can get some church groups involved, the whole thing, because I mean, the church groups and our churches here in town have an interest. I mean, if we're losing a minister in the afternoon due to this sort of problem, we need to do something. I mean, we need to do something.
We do.
All right, Andy, is there anything else?
Nothing I can think of.
Well, then we're probably done, Andy, and I really appreciate you calling and being on the air.
Not a problem, my friend. Talk to you next week.
All right, take care. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. March corn up 6 at 386.5. May up 5 1/4 cents at 392. July up a nickel at 397 1/4. September up 2 3/4 at 394.5. March soybeans down 2 1/4 at 8.95. May down 2 cents at 9.09. July down 2 1/4 at 9.22 1/4. August down 2 1/4 at 9.27. Soybean meal down 20 cents a ton at 297.60. February live cattle down a dime at 122.15. April down 60 cents at 120.70. January feeder cattle closed up 15 cents at 142.05. March up 22 at 135.40. February lean hogs up 27 cents at 66.22. April up 85 at 71.30. May up 67 cents at 77.65. And June up 47 cents at 83.97. From the Iowa Power Farming Show, I'm Dwayne Murley.
I'm Charles Payne, and this is the Fox Business Report.
The major average is recouping some of yesterday's losses as investors look past the continued spread of the coronavirus and focus back on the U.S. and the rollout of corporate earnings, as well as a strong read on consumer confidence. With the Dow rising 187 points, the Nasdaq up 130, S&P 500 up 33. And shares of Apple hitting an all-time high in extended session after delivering a robust quarter and beating Wall Street estimates on earnings and revenue, partially powered by iPhone revenue to the tune of $56 billion. And Starbucks announcing financial results after the closing bell with an earnings beat and revenue miss. U.S. same-store sales increasing by 6%, boosted by more customers visiting its cafes. Sales at Chinese locations open at least a year, increasing 3% as Starbucks faces greater competition from rival Luckin Coffee. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Hillary Barsky, invested in you.
Don't miss out on the Rocket Mortgage Super Bowl Squares sweepstakes. We're giving away $50,000 every score change, touchdowns, field goals, even extra points, 50 G's. Plus, 2 grand prize winners will win $500,000 that could be used toward their dream home. Hurry up and get your square at RocketMortgageSquares.com.
Enter by January 30th, 2020. No purchase necessary. 18 years or older except Alabama, Nebraska, and Mississippi. Ends January 30th. Licensed all 50 states. NMLS number 3030. The NFL is not sponsored promotion in any way.
A family life specialist says farmers facing stress need to talk about it. I'm Julie Harker with Managing for Profit on Brownfield. When it comes to the assets on your farm, Sean Brotherson with North Dakota State University Extension says you are its biggest asset. And if you are suffering from stress, it is best to talk with someone and get help.
Preservation of your health and your relationships is really important for your future and for being able to do well on your farm operation.
More on getting help coming up on Brownfield.
Welcome to the Orphan Diaries.
Here is the president of Food for Orphans, Gary Van Dyke.
There are 143 million orphans in the world today, and another child becomes an orphan every 2 seconds. Food for Orphans is helping to end that suffering. Every dollar donated provides 2.5 meals, and every $100 will provide a meal to 250 innocent orphans. That's a real demonstration that someone loves them.
For more information, visit www.foodfororphans.org.
A powerful threat calls for a greater response.
Not tomorrow. Not in a few years.
But right now.
Some battles must be faced together. Cancer fighters stand up to cancer every day, and you can be part of this battle too.
Visit standuptocancer.org to learn more.
Together, we can save lives.
Sean Brotherson with North Dakota State University Extension was the keynote speaker at the University of Missouri Crop Management Conference. He says family and friends can approach a farmer who appears to be struggling with stress to open the conversation to getting help.
Yeah, extended family tends to be typically a good support system for people who are dealing with stress. One of the things is, often in farm operations, you're working with extended family. If people are under higher levels of stress, you may feel some strain in those relationships. And so you need to assess where are you right now. But the bottom line is that preservation of your health and your relationships is really important for your future and for being able to do well on your farm operation.
Brotherson recommends seeing a family doctor to get things started and avoid the worst outcome.
It's about helping them to prioritize their health and pursue quality of life. And of course that means managing their mental health so that if there is a suicide risk that may emerge, that they understand how to access resources and how to get support for that. When we talk about our health, I often tell people, if you look at all the assets on a farm operation, you talk about land, you talk about equipment, you talk about seed, but of all those assets, the one that goes unlisted and yet is probably the most important resource is the health of the individuals who are working on that operation and the quality of their relationships. And so if that's true, then you need to make managing your health your most important priority in managing your farm or ranch operation, because it's the resource that's going to get you through times of stress. You really depend on it. And so health management, prioritizing their health, that's kind of the approach that I'm focused on. And of course, sometimes that does involve life and death situations when someone has thoughts related to suicide. And it's okay to help people understand that just because someone is experiencing depression, they may have those kind of thoughts, it doesn't mean something is weak about them. It doesn't mean that they're inadequate in some way. It means just that they're dealing with heightened levels of stress, and they need to be able to be assisted with resources that are going to help them through that situation.
I'm Julie Harker with Managing for Profit on Brownfield.
What's in store this week at your local Staples?
Out with the old and ink with the new.
You can't print without ink.
Yeah, it's very hard. I've tried.
So stock up on the ink and toner you need and save at Staples.
Because right now, when you buy $75 of ink or $200 of toner, you receive 25% back in Staples rewards.
25% back in rewards. A nice way to start the new year.
Staples, where there's a whole lot more in store.
Ends 2/1/20. See store or staples.com/25 in rewards for details.
We see and hear about violent crimes almost on a daily basis, whether it's on the local news or happening right here in our communities. Unfortunately, violence is everywhere, and most people think it will never happen to them. The Homicide Other Violent Crimes program is here to help those affected by these crimes. All services are free and confidential. For more information on how you or someone you love could benefit from services, please call 515-955-5677 or visit us on the web at dsoc.com.
If you're into cars or just want to learn a thing or two, tune in every Saturday afternoon from 2 till 4 for the Under the Hood Car Show on AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
Yeah, this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. I'm Michael Devine. I want to thank you for listening today, and hopefully we gave you something to think about or laugh about. I hope that's the case. I get out there every now and then, I know, but really, This is one of the few local talk stations in the state that's right here in down. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing for everybody. I hope to do it as long as I can. I'll just put it that way. 21 degrees, maybe a little snow overnight, no big deal. Super Bowl Sunday coming up. And we'll talk to you guys. Thank you very much for listening once again.
The next phase. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. The president's defense team has wrapped up its opening statements in his impeachment trial, with lawmakers plotting where to go next.
Senate Republicans are meeting behind closed doors, talking about etching out their questions for those 2 8-hour sessions on Wednesday and Thursday that they will pose to the House managers and the defense counsel here. Also discussing witnesses. That is issue A number 1, because you have, depending on how you calculate it, 2 to 3 senators on the Republican side of the aisle seriously considering witnesses. Lindsey Graham is also somebody who's talking about this as well. But in particular, Susan Collins of Maine and Mitt Romney of Utah have said that they are for witnesses. Lisa Murkowski, a Republican of Alaska, says she might want to hear more specifically from John Bolton, the former national security advisor.
Fox's Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill. Lead impeachment manager Adam Schiff.
If they want a witness for witness, then let them call Mick Mulvaney. Mick Mulvaney has said that he disputes what John Bolton has to say. Let them call Mick Mulvaney. Let them call Secretary Pompeo. Let them call people that are precipient witnesses to this scandal and this corrupt scheme.
The trial resumes tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. At the White House this afternoon,
I was not elected to do small things or shy away from big problems.
the president with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and opposition leader Benny Gantz announcing a Mideast peace proposal that would more than double the territory now under Palestinian control, but would also recognize Israel's sovereignty over major settlements in the West Bank. He's urging Palestinians to study the plan. Wall Street at the close, stocks ending the day broadly higher, reversing most of the losses from yesterday. The Dow added 187 points. The Nasdaq rose 130. The S&P up 32. America is listening to Fox News.
This is what Flo from Progressive sounds like in one of our many hilarious commercials.
Hi! Did you know that you can get a quote on your motorcycle insurance in under 3 minutes at Progressive.com? And did you know that saying hi makes even bad news sound good? Hi! You have high cholesterol! Hi! You're fired!
And this is what that same commercial sounds like on your motorcycle.
Hi! There's no more cake!
Yeah, even our commercials sound better on a bike. And with basic policy starting at $75 a year, Progressive helps keep you on yours. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Annual premium for basic liability policy not available in all states.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
With your KVFD news update, I'm Rob Jones. A Fort Dodge man has been sentenced to prison for half a century on sexual abuse charges against a child. Joseph D. Peterson has been sentenced to 50 years following his conviction back in December on second-degree sexual abuse for charges against a child under 12. Peterson was found guilty during a jury trial in December. Originally, Peterson faced 2 counts. An additional 6 were added during trial. However, Judge Angela Doyle threw out the additional 6 and sentenced Peterson to the original 2. Peterson received 2 25-year consecutive sentences. He must serve 3/4 of each sentence before he has the eligibility for parole. Also, after his release from prison, Peterson would have to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. The first Eggs and Issues event of the year took place this past weekend here in Fort Dodge with several legislators from around the area. Those in attendance were able to ask questions to those legislators. Representative Mike Sexton of Rockwell City responded to issues that were brought up regarding hog confinements.
It's people that think that we aren't doing enough to regulate hog confinements, when in fact Iowa is one of the, as far as livestock, is one of the most heavily regulated states in the Midwest. So I'm not sure what they wanted me to say.
Senator Tim Kreinbrink said that mental health care was a hot topic during the event.
A lot of mental health questions, and I feel that we will be making big strides, especially with the things like that have happened to the Fort Dodge community. I think there's a real awareness and a need for continued mental health support.
Representative Ann Meyer talked about the proposal for an access center here in Fort Dodge, and she explained what that access center would provide.
This is a place where law enforcement, possibly family members, will drop off a person in crisis, and it's a 24-hour diffusing of the situation. If they need substance abuse treatment, they'll be able to have that. If they need crisis intervention as far as medication therapy, they'll be able to treat that, but then they may require hospitalization, or the problem may be diffused. That's what that access center, access point is.
Representative Meyer says she's working diligently on getting the access center.
Regardless of what's going on at these different levels, we need the access center in Fort Dodge, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that that happens.
Eggs and Issues was held on campus at Iowa Central. For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast.
Live from the headquarters of Ramsey Solutions, broadcasting from the Dollar Car Rental Studios, it's the Dave Ramsey Show, where debt is dumb, cash is king, and the paid-off home mortgage has taken the place of the BMW as the status symbol of choice. I'm Dave Ramsey, your host. Thank you for joining us, America. Open phones at 888-825-5225. That's 888-825-5225. Greg is going to start us off this hour in Tennessee. Welcome to the Dave Ramsey Show, Greg.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure. What's up?
My question is, I have been a listener of yours for decades and never took my natural peace, but I followed it. Pretty much your rules, 99 times out of 100. My question is, for those of us who have become debt-free and we have no debt, and at what point in time do we realize, hey, I've busted my butt, say, for decades. When do I determine when can I start splurging some with my finances? You know, buy a little, not really, like a toy or a car or whatever.
Yeah, probably about 5 years ago for you.
People tell me I'm cheap every day.
You're
so
probably
I'm not
late.
surprised.
You're probably late. What happens to us is that we live like no one else, so that later we can live and give like no one else, and then we forget to do it.
Okay.
So you've lived like no one else. You've been on rice and beans, and you got out of debt, and you got used to living on the cheap, and you've been piling up money, and you've done a great job, and you're probably debt free, probably got a big pile of money, and and now it's emotionally hard to loosen up a little bit because you're afraid you're going to screw it up.
Exactly.
So the rule I use is that when I'm working with people who have built some wealth and struggling with that, and sometimes honestly Sharon and I struggle with it because our money has grown more than our emotional grasp of it. We still feel like we are worth a lot less than we're actually mathematically worth. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Yeah. And so what we say is, if we're going to splurge, if we're going to buy something that's just a crazy, what we used to would call a crazy luxury item, like when we were broke people and we would say, no one should ever spend that on that. Have you ever heard that? And so,
yes.
And you're getting ready to now. You're getting ready to spend that on that, which is very cool. You should buy that car, So the rule of thumb I use is this. what is the ratio of that to my net worth? Okay, so let's pretend.
Okay.
Let's use an example. Let's pretend you had $1 million in mutual funds in your 401k. How much have you got?
Just in 401k or all total?
All total.
About 1.7 million.
Okay, cool. I was guessing. I'm about right. Okay. So way to go. Congratulations. You did it. Okay, so let's say you bought a crazy butt $100,000 car. Okay?
Okay.
And you didn't even put insurance on it, and you forgot to set the brake, and it went off the cliff and burned. Now you're worth $1.6 million. Well, whoop-de-doop-de. Now, that's a kind of a bizarre example, but I mean, if you just completely set $100,000 on fire in your backyard and watched it burn, you literally wouldn't change your life at all.
Okay.
So you can splurge like that, and it, you know, but now if you start talking about you're going to spend $800,000 on something crazy, now that's half your freaking world. We got to stop and think about this one.
Right.
You see what I'm doing? Now I've got a friend that's worth. I got a friend that's worth $200 million.
Wow.
So him buying a $200,000 car is like most people buying a biscuit. Right? Ratio wise, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect his life. And yet, you know, where I grew up and the way I grew up, no one should ever spend that on a car. Well, he makes he's got hundreds of millions of dollars. It's irrelevant. He gives more than that in charity.